Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls from whichever part of the country or the world that you're logging in from. A warm welcome to Reflections 2020. It's the second part of the annual conference of Cannanore Obstetric and Gynecological Society, very proudly in collaboration with the National Organization of Gynecologists, which is FOGSI, the Federation of Obstetric and Gynecological Societies of India, and ICOG, one of the largest academic bodies in the country. As you all know that we had the first session of our annual conference Reflections 2020 last week, where we had a couple of very good, interesting lectures, as well as an expert discussion on diabetes in pregnancy. This time we have another set of wonderful speakers and wonderful sessions in store. We have two keynote lectures and the Cannanore Society oration, which is the second ever Cannanore Society oration to be hosted by us. So that is the schedule for the day. So it's my privilege as the president of Cannanore Obstetric and Gynecological Society, located at Cannanore in Kerala, to welcome each one of you to this second part of our annual conference called Reflections 2020. Let me first invite and have the privilege of welcoming Dr. Shantakumari Shekharan, who is the President-elect 2021 of FOGSI. I also welcome the other three speakers, Dr. Narendra Malhotra, Dr. Jaideep Tang, as well as Dr. Asha Singhani, who would be logging in soon with us for the wonderful lectures and orations that we are going to hear. I also welcome all the chairpersons who would be dealing with the individual sessions as the program goes on. And most importantly, every viewer who would be the essential component in making this program a big success. So without wasting any time, we move on to the inauguration. As always, because we are living in COVID times, it would be a virtual inauguration. So I have the privilege of inviting Dr. Shantakumari Shekharan for the inauguration. She, as you all know, is the President-elect of FOGSI 2021, who is a senior consultant, obstetrician and gynecologist, and laparoscopic surgeon at Yashoda Hospitals at Hyderabad. She was the chairperson of FOGSI ICOG in 2018 and the secretary of ICOG between 2015 and 2017. She is a member of the FIGO working group on VAW 2015 to 2021, the vice president of FOGSI in the year 2013, secretary TCOGS 2015 to 2019. She was the IAG managing committee member between 2015 and 19. His major awards and achievements on her name. She is an FRCOG from UK in 2018. She was awarded that. And FRCPI of the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland. She initiated a wonderful initiative called Dhira. I'm sure many of you would have heard that, and we already know the impact that it has made to eliminate violence against women. There was some very, very big meetings and big awareness initiatives and movements that Madam had led. She is the national corresponding editor, was the national corresponding editor of Jogi between 2011 and 2013, and was the vice president of FOGSI in 2013. So it's such a privilege to have such a wonderful person, and more importantly, a very, very loving person for all of us. That's why we take the privilege of making that phone call at any time of the day and inviting her for such an inauguration process. Though we are a very, very small society located in one southern corner of India. So with all the love and affection, on behalf of all the members of Cannanore O&G Society, I welcome you, Shantakumari Madam, for the inauguration and the inaugural address of Reflections 2020, Part 2.
Thank you, Saijas. Good afternoon, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to be with the Cannanore Society. But only thing is I'm not able to see you all in real. It's only the virtual meeting. And thank you, Saijas, and Simi, the secretary, the whole of Cannanore Society, for having me with you all for your conference on the term reflections. And if I think about reflections, I'm remembering last year It was June 16th. I was in Cannanore. So US is not such a small society or not reachable society. It's very much reachable. And we had a flight from Hyderabad to Kannur also. So I still remember when I wanted to visit your Cannanore Society, because I had already had a meeting with Calicut and on that afternoon. You just had finished your annual conference the day before, I think, or 2 days before. And then you were in a dilemma how to host a meeting immediately after having our annual conference. And you were also not in town. But I should really have to put on record and real warm thanks to the whole of your society. So many of your members, about 15, 20 of them actually came. I said, it's okay, I'll come and meet some of you all. So they all came and we all had a nice get together meeting. It was more of an, a personal get to know each other. And it was a fantastic experience, let me tell you. It was nothing, not a big academic program or anything, but they took the time out to come and meet me on a evening at a very short notice. And I still remember the drive from Calicut to Cannanore. It was such a beautiful drive, and the seaside especially, I really didn't realize that there was such a lovely beachside and all. And on the way, there was one checkpost which said Talicheri. And Talicheri is one thing, for me, Talicheri is, I remember the Talicheri pepper. The Talicheri pepper bottle which comes from actually from US, It's a fantastic pepper which we use. And I was so excited to see the Talicheri post there. I took a photo and put it in my family group. And that beach was so nice. And just now Shai just told me, I believe it is one of the most desirable, among the first 50 desirable places to visit. And unknowingly I had visited. And actually that time I thought I should come back and spend some more time here. So I'm sure after this COVID era goes, definitely I'm going to visit Cannanore and go and visit that beach. And let me tell you, actually, the depth of your program, you put a very nice terminology, reflections. So ordinarily, I would have wondered what reflections was. 2 days back, my tailor came back, he got the blouses for me, which I had given him in the month of February. So it was a pre-lockdown and he got it. Then after I took it from him, then he said, Madam, are you going to give some more? I said, no, not right now, little later. Then I came inside and told my mother, now I didn't give him anything, because every time, it's every 1-2 weeks, I keep giving him something to stitch. Then my mother made a statement, now don't you realize that we don't really need to buy all the clothes we buy? People have realized that. I think that is the part of the reflections into reality and life. I think COVID, this has taught us some things like going back to basics or realizing how we need to actually look at life. The perspective of life and the perspective of how we look at life has also changed to some extent. So aptly you put reflections for your annual conference, and that means a lot. And today I've seen the program is fantastic. You got some of the best speakers. You got our own Narendra Malhotra sir. He's the past president of FOGSI, but he's one of the most favorite past presidents of FOGSI. Everyone loves to have him in all the conferences. So it's so very nice to see sir. And it's really a pleasure to be in this meeting where I could have actually told hi to sir before the program started. And we're going to have Jaideep Tank, and Jaideep Tank and abortions are so closely linked. I think he is a synonym of anything about abortion, either in FOGSI, FIGO, or AOFOG. So I'm sure we are going to hear a lot about what Jaideep is going to share with us very shortly. And your oration, I think, I have to mention. Asha, I read a lot of Asha's posts in the Facebook. And the depth of a post actually shows the intensity of a feeling. So after reading those, I'm very sure if the oration she's going to deliver will definitely impart a lot of take-home messages to all the viewers. And I'm sure all your members are very happy to be actually able to be a part of this conference sitting in the comfort of the home. Now, whom do I see on this thing? I am just seeing Jaideep Tank, who has just logged in. So hi Jaideep, we were just talking about how Jaideep is synonymous with abortion, be it FOGSI, FIGO, AOFOG or anything. So I'm going to be lucky. I actually have to go and attend one more webinar, but I have time. I'm going to listen to Jaydeep's wonderful talk and then go on. So I just wish all of you a wonderful program and really a pleasure to be a part of your virtual CME. And I'm sure next time we will have actually physical presence in your conference. I'm very sure. I will definitely come back to Cannanore. So all the best for today's CME.
Thank you so much, madam. Those words are very, very special. And whenever we talk about you, there's a mention about you. There's always a mention about that wonderful non-academic visit and the time that you had spent with our members. Even our senior most member, our founder president, Dr. Safia Shah, had taken the effort to come and meet you. Just because everybody wanted to meet that dynamism, which they are only heard about till then. They wanted to meet that person actually, just a reply to whatever you said. You reaching a society does not actually mean that the society is in remote. I think you have reached to almost the remotest of the societies in India over the last year or so. So there are no places unexplored as far as you have been, even before you have taken up your presidential post. So that's something wonderful. And thanks a lot for obliging and being the inaugurator for this conference. It really means a lot. And we thank you from the bottom of our heart, madam.
Thank you. I also enjoyed being here with you all.
Thank you. Yeah. And next time, as you told, after COVID, I'm sure you would be here and you would explore the beaches and the temples in much more detail.
We'll ask Narendra Malhotra sir and Jaydeep also to come. That beach is superb. And Cannanore has an airport, so very easy to reach also. We are all going to come back, 3 of us next year. Jaydeep is giving a smile.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to it actually. Hi Naren, how are you?
Yeah. So with all your permission, shall we move on to the academic part of it?
Yes.
So it's such a privilege that though it's such tough times, we are able to get some very eminent speakers who are the real authority of these particular topics in the country. So the first talk, it's a keynote lecture that is about abortion in India, law and practice. And I have a very, very special person to introduce. And then before I move on to the introduction, I would tell that there are 2 of our senior members who have been wonderful leaders and flag bearers and who still continue to be so of Cannanore O&G Society will be the chairpersons. The woman power duo, I would call them, which is Dr. Sujitra Sudhir, who is the past adolescent health chairperson of Kerala Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecology and the present vice president of Kerala Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecology. And then we have Dr. Mini Balakrishnan, who is the immediate past president of Cannanore O&G Society, a very, very active member in all the socially relevant projects that we do at Cannanore. So I welcome the woman duo of Dr. Sujitra Sudhir and Dr. Mini Balakrishnan for chairing this particular session.
Thank you.
I move on to the privilege of introducing the speaker. Though he told me that I need to read it very short, but I think every word of that CV is worth a mention, and I want the entire country to know, as it would be said in Republic TV. I want the entire nation to know about these.
The whole nation will have to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he is none other than the present Secretary General of the Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecological Societies of India, which is FOGSI. He is the present president of the illustrious Mumbai Obstetrics and Gynecology Society. He is the chair of the International Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecology, FOGSI Committee for Safe Abortion. And that's why Shantakumari, madam, rightly said that his name is synonymous whenever we talk about abortions. He's the Deputy Secretary of Asia-Oceania Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecology, AOFOG, and an ex-chair, Publication and Newsletter Committee of AOFOG, the Reproductive Endocrinology and Infertility Committee of AOFOG. He was the chairperson of the MTP committee between 2004 and 2009, a vice president for the Forum of Enhancement of Quality in Healthcare, FEQH, is at present the consultant at Ashwini Maternity and Surgical Hospital and Center for Endoscopy and IVF, the co-founder of Esperanza Healthcare Private Limited, the program director and member of board of Profert IVF. Is very importantly, these are some points which you should know. He has been instrumental in drafting the proposal for FIGO, which has resulted in a grant of $13 million for a 10-country, a multinational project, 8 in Africa and 2 in South America, and is at present the technical lead for this project. He is currently working on developing a proposal for a 6-country project on menstrual hygiene, a very, very relevant topic of today, in Asian countries for AOFOG. He's also working on developing a project for the MOGs geared towards assisting the underprivileged women in urban slums with their menstrual hygiene needs. And as most of you would already know that he is the person who has significantly made a good amount of work on amendments to the MTP Act with the Government of India, drafted and proposed the guidelines for abortion beyond 20 weeks for the Government of Maharashtra, part of several technical advisory groups and committees of the Government of India, contributed to the electronic membership management system and the e-voting of FOGSI, which started from last year and which turned out to be a big success, developing a completely redrafted user-friendly constitution for FOGSI, which is also something which we are cherishing every moment, and contributed and led the development of the FOGSI statements on cesarean rates, hysterectomy rates, contraceptive implants, ART bill, surrogacy bill, the FOGSI WPs, the interventions in Supreme Court on the PCPNDT, which is something which we have realized at every point when that entire process was going on, the IRIA case, the oxytocin case and others, restructuring of the FOGSI cells, minutes of the FOGSI MCM and GBMs and several other initiatives. So it's such a privilege to have such an individual deliver the keynote address for Reflections 2020 Part 2, the annual conference of Cannanore O&G Society. So with all the love and appreciation, much more important than what is mentioned in the CV is that he is a wonderful orator. Probably, definitely one amongst the best that I've heard in my lifetime. So with a lot of respect and a lot of love, let me have the privilege of inviting Dr. Jaideep Tank, the present Secretary General of FOGSI, for his keynote address on abortion in India, law and practice.
Thank you very much, Shaijas. That was an extremely kind introduction. If I knew you were going to say such nice things about me, I would have told my wife to log in for sure. I'm going to first begin by thanking the Cannanore Society, one of our most active societies in the state in India which has the best health indicators, indeed a state to which we all look up to and hope to achieve the same level of healthcare that your state has. It's always a pleasure to speak, to societies in Kerala. And to tell you the truth, also a little nervous because everybody in Kerala seems to be so well read, and you really have to make sure that your preparations are quite up to the mark because you know that you will be asked some very interesting and relevant and penetrating questions. I'd like to share my screen now, and if you will just give me a minute. But as I'm sharing my screen, I must thank the Cannanore Society, and in particular, I must thank the Secretary, Dr. Simi Kurian, and of course, Shaijas. Shaijas has been extremely persistent in making sure that I attend this webinar. So thank you very much, Shaijas, for that. And of course, the chairpersons of this session, Dr. Suchitra and Dr. Giri Balakrishnan, and all the other seniors whom I can see over here. I understand that I have 30 minutes for this presentation. It is 3:25 now. Shaijas, is that right? 30 minutes?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it's 3:25 now, and I will make sure that I finish by 3:55. I have a watch here, so don't worry. I'll try avoiding overshooting.
Sure.
The current talk is focused around a few talking points, and the talking points are the numbers about abortion, the law specific to India, how in a series of unintended, really, if you will, with some other laws like the POGSO and the PNDT Act, We'll then talk a little bit about the current amendments which have been passed by the Lok Sabha but still have to be passed by the Rajya Sabha, and that is a point I will emphasize again. And then we'll complete the presentation by talking a little bit about practice in the first and the second trimester as far as abortion services go for the women of our country. But before I begin this talk, I have always felt that sometimes we as obstetricians and gynecologists and particularly members of FOGSI don't appreciate ourselves enough. I don't know how many of you realize, but India currently has the lowest ever maternal mortality in its history. And over the last few years, we have one of the steepest decline in maternal mortality in any country of the world. So I think the first thing that we as obstetricians and gynecologists should do is probably give ourselves a round of applause, because at the end of the day, it is us who are the healthcare providers for women who deliver, and as the healthcare providers for women who deliver, in a large part, the steep decline in maternal mortality is in fact thanks to us. I'll begin this presentation with a story, and this is a story of a 12-year-old girl. This 12-year-old girl was in a remote village in our country. Her parents were daily wage workers, and every day they used to go to the fields to work. And they used to leave the daughter in the hands of a trusted relative, her uncle, and go and work. Unfortunately, as it happened, this trusted relative was actually not to be trusted. In a series of unfortunate events, he repeatedly raped this 12-year-old girl. The inevitable happened, the girl got pregnant. But because of her age, because of the stigma which surrounds sexual abuse, and also probably because of the fear of who would believe her, the girl did not tell her parents. By the time the parents and the girl realized that they were pregnant, she was already 24 weeks into her pregnancy. They went to the hospital 24 weeks, but as you know, our act does not allow us to terminate pregnancies beyond 20 weeks. And now it's compounded by the problem of the FOGSI Act for this age group. The family was therefore forced to move a lower court. The lower court obviously could not give them permission, and by the time they actually went to the Supreme Court through various channels, she was already 32 weeks pregnant. And it was not surprising that at 32 weeks, the Supreme Court said, sorry, we are not going to allow you to terminate this pregnancy. So because of all these laws, regulations, low awareness, and of course, the fear of stigma around abortion, you had here a teenager who could have had a termination of pregnancy and was denied a termination of pregnancy, which resulted in her having to go to term and delivering a full-term baby by cesarean section. This speaks to something of the unintended consequences well-meaning laws can sometimes have on people's lives, particularly those who are most vulnerable, adolescents, poor women, and poor families who have no other recourse. It is estimated that worldwide, 44% of pregnancies are unintended. In 10 to 14, 59% of unintended pregnancies ended in abortion in developed region, and in 55% of unintended pregnancies, there was an abortion. So how many abortions does that mean globally? It means that globally every year, we are seeing an astounding 55.7 million abortions every year. If you look at how many abortions in India, the official statistics say something else. But this is a very elegant study performed by the Guttmacher Foundation. And this study estimated that India has around 48.1 million pregnancies every year. 48.1 million pregnancies every year. And abortions accounted for 1/3 of all pregnancies. And nearly half of these pregnancies were actually unintended. I'm saying this because the number of unintended pregnancies speaks to the unmet need for contraception. And because of this unmet need for contraception, you have this huge number of abortions in this country, which is 15.6 million abortions every year in India. Out of these 15.6 million, it is sometimes surprising to know that only 3.4 million abortions, that's 22%, were obtained in health facilities. The large majority, the overwhelmingly large majority, were actually medication abortions. And the large majority of these medication abortions were obtained outside health facilities. These are a few very important points to keep in mind when we talk about the practice of abortion in India. The WHO, I admit, is not seen in the best of light now, but at least for this purpose, the WHO has got it spot on by saying that almost all abortion-related deaths are preventable. In fact, when abortion is performed by qualified people using correct techniques and sanitary conditions, it is one of the safest medical procedures. I hesitate to say this, but I read this article from California, which compared abortions and the safety of abortions to dental extractions. And when they compared the complications of dental extractions vis-a-vis abortions, they found that abortions performed by trained people in sanitary settings by the appropriate method actually had a lower morbidity, and it's very surprising, than dental extraction. This is something which we are always very hesitant to accept, that abortion is an extremely safe kind of a procedure, because we've all had some bad experiences with abortion. Whenever I give this talk, I always begin by asking the audience and taking a straw poll saying, how many of you seen a complication of abortion? And invariably everybody's hand goes up. And then I ask, how many of you have seen a complication for an abortion in the last 3 years where the woman died? And it will surprise you to know that in the fairly large number of lectures that I've given on this topic to perhaps more than 10 or 20,000 people, I've had fingers being raised extremely rarely. This speaks to the safety of modern abortion, and yet this makes it even more tragic when unsafe abortion causes so many deaths every year. In India, it seems unsafe abortion causes the death of 2,560 women a year. That's 213 women a month, and 7 women a day, and 1 woman every 3 hours. Now imagine, just think back to your postgraduate days. When I started my post-graduation, and I had just joined, one of the first things I was told to do by my senior registrar was go to the MTP clinic and do the MTPs. Now imagine, this is a procedure that is regarded to be so safe that a freshly trained MBBS doctor with no formal training in abortion was told, go to the clinic and do the abortions. So I saw my senior doing one, I did the other one, things were quite all right. So for me, it's even more ironic that for want of a procedure that is so simple, that a freshly minted MBBS doctor without training is trusted to do that, women in this country are still dying. I'll move on now to the MTP Act of India. Mark Twain, one of my favorite authors, has said that a classic is something that everybody wants to have read and nobody wants to read. It's quite unfortunate that most of us don't bother to read the acts which regulate us. But if you have not already read the MTP Act, I will strongly urge you to read it. For me, it remains one of the most elegant, best written, and indeed empowering act for doctors. This is one of the few acts which actually empowers doctors to provide their services. But what was the need for the act? The need for the act was that the Indian Penal Code, which we inherited from the British, criminalized abortion. There were two sections in the Indian Penal Code, 312 and 313 to 316, which criminalized abortion. That means if you wanted to provide abortion legally, you needed to have some protection from these sections of the Indian Penal Code. At that time, in 1964, the government of India realized that abortion technology could be used legally to bring down the incidence of unsafe abortion. So they set up a committee which was called the Shantilal Shah Committee in 1964, which recommended a broadening and rationalization of the laws related to abortion in 66. The committee took 2 years to give its recommendation. This became known as the MTP bill, which went to the Rajya Sabha in 1969 and was finally passed as the MTP Act in 1971. And I say this because I would like to drive home the point that changes in law don't happen overnight. Again, wherever I speak, I'm always told, why doesn't the government change this part, that part of the act and make it better and so on? But the fact of the matter is that the laws have not kept pace with technology. And laws, in my view, will never keep pace with technology. It's extremely difficult to get laws changed in this country. As you will see here, for a government which initiated the whole process of establishing the law, they still took so many years before the MTP Act of 1971 was born. And in fact, although the act was legislated in 71, it was actually enforced nationwide by a gazette from 1972 and adopted by Kashmir and Mizoram in 1980. There is sometimes some confusion about what is the act, what are the rules, and what are the regulations. The act is an act of parliament providing an overview of safe abortion and delegating authority to central and state governments. The MTP rules are framed by the government but must be ratified by each House of Parliament, whereas the regulations are framed by state governments and only relate to the issues involving opinion, reporting, and maintaining secrecy. So essentially, it is kind of a step down in the rigorousness of how each can be modified. Although the act is very short, I will not have time to take you through the entire act, and therefore I will take you through what is actually the most relevant section of the act, which is section 3. The act is actually very simple. It tells you who can undergo the abortion, it tells you who can do the abortion, and it tells you where the abortion can be done. That's all. It's a very, very simple and, as I already said, elegant and empowering act. So let's look at section 3. Section 3 tells you when pregnancies may be terminated by registered medical practitioners. So section 3(2)(a) says that if the pregnancy is less than 12 weeks, then the opinion of one registered medical practitioner is adequate. If it is between 12 and 20 weeks, then you need the opinion of 2 registered medical practitioners to perform that MTP. It also, so that's about the duration. It also gives you indications for the MTP, where one indication is that the continuance of pregnancy would involve a risk to the life or grave injury to her physical or mental health. And the other indication is that there's a substantial risk that if the child were born, it would suffer from physical or mental abnormalities such that it would be seriously handicapped. There is further explanation of these indications. For example, they say that if the pregnancy is caused by rape, then the anguish caused by such pregnancy is considered to constitute a grave injury to mental health. And of course, there is some flexibility built into the indications. For example, if you look at, say, explanation 2, where any pregnancy occurs as a result of failure of any device or method used by any married woman. So Even at that time, the government was wise enough to realize that there needed to be a broad umbrella indication for MTP. And this was the broad umbrella indication. They have not said that we need to specify what was the device, what was the method. The woman could have been thinking about contraception at that time, and that would be good enough to act as an indication over here. Of course, consent under the MTP Act is extremely important. And what is most important about this is that you have to take the consent in Form C. You may take the fanciest consent possible, but if you have not taken the consent in Form C, that consent is invalid. Furthermore, any woman who is more than 18 years of age and is of sound mind can go ahead with the abortion with her own consent. You don't need the consent of anybody else to terminate a pregnancy for such a woman. Where pregnancies may be terminated, it has to be in a hospital established or maintained, or a place which is approved by the district level committee. And of course, we now, after 2002, have a segregation on facilities which can provide first and second trimester abortions. I believe this was an important step because it allowed many more facilities to provide first trimester abortions than before, where earlier you needed to have all facilities for a second trimester as well. This took care of that problem. Medication abortion, surprisingly enough, is not included under the MTP Act. Medication abortion is allowed in India because of the MTP rules, which allow for the use of these medical agents up to 49 days of pregnancy, that is 7 weeks from LMP. The important thing here is that you don't need a registered place to prescribe medication abortion from. For example, I work in a polyclinic and I want to prescribe medication abortion. My polyclinic is not registered for abortion. How do I do it? I simply put up a certificate saying that in case of a complication, I have access to a registered place for taking that patient there in case there is a problem. If I display that certificate, I can legally provide medication abortion even from the polyclinic. It's important to remember, however, that the MTP Act applies in all respects. The consent is vital. There is always a lot of discussion on ultrasound, and we can maybe talk about that if there is time in the questions. Of course, remember that the MTP Act restricts the provision of MTP only to those who are from the allopathic stream of medicine. It does not allow the other doctors to provide abortions. And then there are some other conditions under which abortion can be provided. According to the MTP regulations, centers are required to maintain an admission register, which is a secret document. So practically speaking, how it works is that the patient comes to you, you have to put her name in a secret document, which is the register, and at that time assign a code to the patient. Once this code is assigned, henceforth, in all the indoor papers, including the discharge card, the patient has to be referred to only by the code. Now, to my mind, this is a little silly because, it causes a problem. We have patients sometimes who have insurance for even abortions. Now, if I give them a discharge card with a code, then how will they get their insurance reimbursed? And then I have to write a covering letter for them, which destroys the whole confidentiality issue. So this is something which is a bit of a problem and needs to be looked at. Of course, as I said, it is an empowering act. It protects us from the Indian Penal Code, and any action taken under the act is protected as an action taken in good faith. So forget about a case being filed against you or you going to court. Ideally speaking, the police should take no cognizance of any complaint and not file an FIR if you have followed all the tenets of the MTP Act, which are who can do the abortion, where it can be done, and who can perform the abortion. Now this is the section 5 of the Act, and this speaks to all these brouhaha we have seen about late abortions. And I would just want to illustrate about how important words are, particularly in the legal context. If you can see my pointer, you'll see that I'm going around the word immediately. Now, if you read this section without the word immediately, it says basically that determination of such pregnancy is immediately necessary to save the life of the pregnant women. If this word were not there, this section would actually allow us to provide abortions to the women who need, even beyond 20 weeks of gestation, because although there may not be an immediate need to save the life of the pregnant women, it could be argued that a pregnancy being carried to term is more risky than an abortion done anywhere before term, and therefore you are actually saving the life of the pregnant women. And that is what I was talking about, unintended consequences. I don't know how many of you are Harry Potter fans, but I really like those books. And in those books, Scrimgeour says, are you planning to follow a career in magical law, Ms. Granger? And Hermione very indignantly replies, no, I'm not. I'm actually hoping to do some good in the world. And this is what happens when laws have unintended consequences. Look at the POGSO Act. A much needed act, but an act which I don't think anybody can argue needed to be a little better. The POGSO Act unfortunately took a very patriarchal attitude towards adolescent sexuality. And by doing this, probably it even infringes on the right to dignity, bodily integrity, etc. when adolescents engage in consensual sexual behavior. So in fact, by not recognizing the fact that adolescent sexuality exists, the POGSO Act has conflated child sexuality with child sexual abuse and failed to consider nuances of age differences, and child development. And therefore, there is a lot of conflict and conflation caused because of the POGSO Act. So you have the same bureaucracy coming out with the POGSO Act, and you have the same bureaucracy which comes out with an RKSK book which talks about adolescent contraception. Tell me, how do you reconcile one with the other? When you've criminalized all sexuality, how do you want the government or us to advocate for adolescent sexuality and adolescent contraception? The other big problem, of course, is the PCPNDT Act. It's not the act that is so much the problem as is the implementation of the act. It's a well-known thing that the large majority of second trimester abortions are not done for sex determination. However, because of the way the act is implemented by the appropriate authorities, providers all over the country are hesitant to provide second trimester abortions. This is part of the arguments that we had presented in the Supreme Court, and this is an RTI application. And what was asked was that did an analysis of all the F forms submitted in a particular district lead to stopping or detection of even one illegal abortion because of sex determination? So they analyzed, over here you will see, several lakhs of forms, and the answer was that not a single case of illegal sex determination could either be prevented or could be detected by analyzing F forms. So we had made this argument in the Supreme Court, and yet, the Supreme Court said no, F forms are still important, although there is absolutely no evidence to show that analyzing F forms can actually produce something substantial in preventing sex determination. In fact, even if you look at late abortions, we have been advocating for abortions beyond 20 weeks for quite some time. There have been a lot of stakeholders in this. We have been happy to be a part of this process. And parliamentary panels had already suggested that abortions be allowed till 24 weeks. And as I always say, the question of abortion shouldn't be an issue in the political arena. When a woman has to make this kind of decision, she should see her doctor and not her lawyer. That is us at the Prime Minister's office, where we had gone to talk to them about, amending the MTP Act and so on. And we had told them that we urgently need all these things. Fortunately, the MTP Act was presented to the Lok Sabha, and it has actually been passed in the Lok Sabha. But I will caution you here to say that it is not yet a law. It still has to go through the Rajya Sabha. It still has to get gazetted. So although all the amendments are very welcome, please be cautious when you interpret it, because this is not the law of the land yet. Right now, the law of the land is the same as it was all these years. So what are the changes in the amendments? They've constituted a medical board. The second is that they have brought in medical or surgical methods. That is, they have brought in medication abortion into the ambit of the act. The lines in orange are the amendments of 2002. The lines in red are the amendments of 2020. The second thing they have done is that they have extended the period of gestation to 24 weeks for a legal abortion. Equally importantly, what they have done is they have removed the requirement of having two providers' opinion for abortions between 12 and 20 weeks. You will see here that for the length of the pregnancy does not exceed 20 weeks, if such medical practitioner, that means up to 20 weeks now, like it is currently till 12 weeks, up to 20 weeks, a single provider can give an opinion. But if it is between 20 and 24 weeks, then you still need an opinion of two providers. But when can you do these abortions between 20 and 24 weeks? When the length of pregnancy exceeds in women, which may be prescribed under the rules. So although they have extended the limit, the clarity of this more will come by rules. Another important thing they have done is where they have removed the married word from the contraceptive clause. That means even unmarried women can utilize that indication. They have added a complete section, and that section essentially talks about the medical board and its constituents. And of course, in section 5, they have made confidentiality much more enforceable. They have also again modified other sections. And this is an op-ed which I had wrote for the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare at Delhi. It's not published yet. Hopefully it will be published soon. I have also participated in the SOPs for MTP beyond 20 weeks. I have got 4 minutes left, Shaijas, and in these next 4 minutes, I will speak a little bit about the practice of abortion in our country. These are the various methods which are recommended by WHO. What I would like you to note that DNC, a standalone DNC, is no longer a recommended method for providing an abortion. We of course know that the earlier you do an abortion, the better it is. There is a 4-fold rise in complications with late abortions. The preferred way of doing surgical abortions now is by MVA. There is absolutely no question about it. There is overwhelming evidence to show that MVA should be the preferred method of providing a surgical abortion. Some people might get a little worried about whether the vacuum in the MVA syringe could be equal to that large big electric machine we use. But as this graph shows, initially till the syringe is 80% full, the vacuum in the MVA syringe is actually higher than that which is produced by the electric pump. Of course, as I've already said, we need to phase out DNC. This is some work we had done in West Bengal, where we had looked at a few sites and sensitized them to the need to stop providing services by DNC. Medication abortion, like any technology, has evolved over a period of time, and these are all the various guidelines starting from 2010 right up to the latest guideline. I've already told you a little bit about who can provide medication abortion and where it can be done. But if you look at this graph, you will be surprised to know that none of this is actually covered in the Act. We will look forward to the new rules where some of this will be described. But medication abortion is not just a simple matter of giving pills. It's actually regulated by several other acts. So this is going to be my last slide because I'm almost out of time. I just have a minute left. And essentially, these are the comparison of the WHO guidelines for medication abortion versus the Government of India guidelines. And although most of them are, sort of in agreement with each other, I would have to say that our guidelines compare very favorably with the WHO guidelines. I'll just end very quickly by describing the process we use for medication abortion. When the patient comes in, we determine that she's less than 9 weeks. If she's less than 9 weeks, we use 200 milligram of mifepristone orally, and then we call the patient back after 48 hours, and we insert 400 micrograms of misoprostol vaginally. We always tell the patient what to expect after both mifepristone and misoprostol. And we always call the patient around 10 to 14 days after the misoprostol to check completeness of abortion. So thank you very much for a very patient hearing. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that I can join all of you again. Thank you very much, Cannanore Society. Thank you very much, Shaijas, Dr. Simi, and of course the chairpersons of this session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jaideep sir. Wonderful, as elaborative, and you have been with so much of clarity. You spoke. Actually a lot of questions pouring in. Before that, I would take the comments from our chairpersons, Dr. Sujitra Sudhir and Dr. Mini Balakrishnan. Dr. Mini Balakrishnan.
Yeah, sir.
Yes.
Hello, sir. It was a wonderful session, in fact. And I think I had been to this session earlier also, and now it has become more and more clearer. The two important points that I have noticed is that, what about the amendments? We all thought by up to 24 weeks now we can do. I think now we have to wait a little more to get the bill passed in the parliament.
Yes, that's correct. You have to wait. It's been passed in the Lok Sabha. It's supposed to be a mere formality, but that formality has not been completed yet. It's actually a fairly convoluted process, you know. We have, the first meeting I attended for these amendments was actually in 2001, if you will believe that. And this discussion has been going on for such a long time. Finally now when they have gone to the Lok Sabha, unfortunately we have had this lockdown and Parliament is not in session. So hopefully once they bring the Parliament back to session, since it's already passed in the Lok Sabha, we fully expect it will go to the Rajya Sabha, it will go to the Joint Select Committee, and then it will get gazetted. Only when it is gazetted, we say that it is a rule of it's a law of the land. So unless and until we don't see the gazette, please continue doing abortions the way you are currently doing, and don't do 24-week abortions as of now.
Okay,
of course, there is a mechanism for that. You need to go to the High Court and so on and so forth, but maybe we can talk about that. Yes.
Okay, and even if you are doing medical abortions, you have to take the consent form in Form C only, isn't it, sir?
Absolutely. So even if you're doing a medication abortion, you're still providing a service. In fact, you know, there was a very interesting discussion on how doctors should charge for medication abortion. You know, that is something which always sort of comes up in discussions about medication abortion. When medical abortion came in 2002, everybody thought that gynecologists will not do medical abortions because that will mean we are, you know, not getting a surgical procedure and we will charge less. But the way I do it in my practice is I tell patients I'm providing the service. Whether I do it medically or I do it surgically should make no difference as long as the outcome is the same. And in my practice, again, this is not a FOGSI guideline or anything. This is my personal view. I charge the same for a medication abortion and a surgical abortion. I make no distinction in my charges between the two. So yes, medication abortion is also an abortion. You need to fulfill the MTP Act in all respects. You need to fill the register. You need to give a code. You need to fill Form C. And you need to ensure that all your documentation is up to date.
And one more, we get patients who are gone to the medical shop directly and they purchase the medicine of their own and then they land up in the night with heavy bleeding. So are we supposed to take the consent again in Form C?
No, over there you're not dealing with an MTP. You're dealing either with an inevitable abortion, a threatened abortion, or an incomplete abortion. So by definition, that's not an MTP. For such patients, do not fill the Form C. In fact, if you fill the Form C, you know, you are actually erring too much on the side of caution.
Okay. So anyway, nice. It was a wonderful session. Bouquet of flowers from the
Thank you so much for that. Can I get any comments from Sujitra, madam? Madam, can you unmute yourself? Sujitra, madam.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Dr. Jaideep, that was a wonderful, I mean, we really got a real view of abortions. Actually, many of us shy away from doing abortions because there is a taboo. Usually people think that if that if that gynec is doing abortion, she is making money illegally, some sort of taboos there even now. So many people, many of my, even my colleagues, some of them say it is so difficult to get an abortion done. That is why many people end up going to quacks still.
Yeah.
That's the problem, because the word abortion itself, people are very much, have a feeling that it is something that is not good. It should not be done. But
Thank you, madam. Sorry, please go on.
Adolescents should be given some information about contraception.
I fully
They are
agree.
taking
Yes.
so many adolescent classes. We know that they are very much aware of so many things, but they don't know anything about contraception. So that is something that we have to, give some emphasis on. Also, nowadays, PPS contraception is kept on the back shelf. Nobody is doing. We can't even tell them. People will say, we don't want to do. We don't want copper tea. Before, they used to be very much willing to put copper tea and take contraceptive pills, but now no more. We can't ask.
Previously,
also.
there were targets, health ministry targets were given. So, targets for the health workers.
I think that's you brought up a very important point. In fact, nowadays it is believed that most of the problems which arise because of unsafe abortions arise because of the stigma which surrounds abortions. And that stigma works both ways. There's stigma in the community where a woman who undergoes an abortion is sometimes ostracized. And there is stigma within the medical community as well. People are not necessarily aware that abortions are legal in India. By providing an abortion, you're not doing anything shady. You're not doing anything illegal. We had done a study many years back in medical college over here. And in that study, when we asked women about whether they thought abortions were legal or not, 65% women said that they did not know that abortions were legal in India since 1971. And that has probably contributed, to the stigma. We certainly need some community level work, around this. But the interesting thing here is, and if you will, do I have a couple of minutes to speak about this?
Yes.
Okay. The interesting thing here is that if you look at the contribution of unsafe abortion to maternal mortality in India, it shows you a very interesting statistic. When the sample registration survey was done in between 1998 and 2000, the contribution of unsafe abortion to maternal mortality was 18%, 1/8. They did the next SRS, that's the sample registration survey, in 2003-04. To their surprise, they found that the contribution of unsafe abortion to maternal mortality had gone down from 18%, 1/8%, an astounding 10% decrease in the contribution of unsafe abortion to maternal mortality. So now unsafe abortion contributes less than 8% to maternal mortality. The big question to me over here always is what changed? In 2000, the survey shows 18%. In 2003, within 2 years, the survey shows a precipitous drop in unsafe abortion by 10%, which is a very, very large number. It translates into literally thousands of women every year. So what happened? Did we have more abortion providers? Did we get so much better at providing abortion that, we were not providing abortions very well, now we are providing better? Did the government suddenly open overnight hundreds and thousands of clinics to provide abortion? No. What happened was that in 2002, medication abortion was introduced. And in 2002, when medication abortion was introduced, India, in the first year of medication abortion, saw one of the world's largest number of medication abortion pills being sold in the entire world. You see, so you have to look at it in context over here. We are always asked, over-the-counter sale of medication abortion pill is bad. And it is illegal. Quite clearly, it is illegal. The question to ask is it bad? And let's think, scientifically over here, because nothing else accounts for the drop in maternal mortality from unsafe abortion. Okay. So, for example, you have a lot of articles in the Indian Journal of OBGYN which say that women who come after consuming medication abortion pills on their own have a higher rate of complications compared to women who are provided abortion in the medical college. But obviously, naturally, you are comparing something which the woman accessed in her community versus the gold standard of abortion care, which is abortion care in a medical college. What you should be comparing is women who access medication abortion on their own versus the other methods which a woman has access to in her community. So, for example, is a woman
So in
taking
between, can I just
methylation?
interrupt for a moment?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, of course.
Actually, I have a lot of questions for you to come in.
Okay, sorry.
So sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
Yeah. No, so I'll just finish this one thought.
Please do,
that,
sir. Please do.
You have to So you have to compare apples to apples. Scientifically speaking, if you are saying that over-the-counter abortion pills, you have to compare it to what else is available in the community. What else is available in the community? Dyes, sticks being put in the uterus, vinegar being put in the uterus, turpentine being put in the uterus. Now you tell me, or what you think is safer. All these methods with dyes, etc., or a woman taking mifemezo in an unauthorized fashion. Again, this is not the view of FOGSI. This will never be the view of FOGSI because I don't think we are at a point where we can advocate for over-the-counter. But when we ask for stricter regulations to medication abortion, this is a broader view of maternal mortality that we need to keep in mind. Sorry, Saijas, please.
No worries. We have a question from Dr. Rashmi all the way from Agra. She wants to know, is consent required for prescribing medical abortions less than 7 weeks through her OPD prescriptions?
Yes, absolutely. No question. I think I've already emphasized that an abortion is an abortion. You need to fill the register, fill the Form C, and so on and so forth. Yes.
Yeah. The next question is from Dr. Anita from Madurai. Is it mandatory to get a court order to do MTP for an under 18-year-old 20-week pregnancy after a police intimation?
Okay. Yes, on all fronts, because once she's under 18, that her sexuality is criminalized by FOGSI. In fact, if you don't report such a patient, you could get into trouble because the FOGSO Act says that if you don't report such a patient, then you have aided and abetted the crime. So this is where, as I said, there is a unintended consequence of the law. So instead of making it easier and safer for adolescents to get an abortion when they need, unfortunately, the FOGSO Act has made it more difficult. So in short, if she is either more than 20 weeks or she is less than 18, you need a court order.
Another question from Dr. Anita herself. Is it mandatory to send the products of conception for a genetic analysis in an under 18 pregnant patient?
120% not. This is not, N-O-T, not. You don't have to do that. The reason why some people were talking about this was that the products of conception were regarded as evidence of the crime in cases where rape could be alleged. So for example, if she is a minor, then it is what you call statutory rape. And therefore it was thought that these evidence should be preserved. But there are more than enough rules and more than enough judgments which say that you don't need to preserve products of conception, you don't need to send them for genetic analysis, nothing. You just treat them as you would any other kind of biomedical substance and dispose them off accordingly.
Fine. Question from Dr. Cynthia from Kozhikode. She wants to know whether can a woman do an MTP beyond 20 weeks and before 24 weeks, even if it is not for rape or not for anomalies?
So the answer to that right now is that the current law stands. We are allowed only to do abortions till 20 weeks. Anything beyond 20 weeks has to go to a high court. There is a Supreme Court judgment which says that lower courts cannot decide to give permission. So the procedure is that the person who would like to have that abortion goes to the High Court. The High Court sends this case to the medical board of the local medical college. The medical board gives an opinion on whether this abortion is required or can be done or not. And then if the medical board says yes, the High Court will give permission and also direct the patient as to where this abortion can be provided. In Maharashtra, in the guidelines which I have written for the Maharashtra government, I have put in the fact that patients can also choose where they can go and get the abortion as long as the clinic they choose is registered under the MTP Act. So as of now, more than 20 weeks, you need High Court permission.
Dr. Dikta from Madurai tells a big thanks to the speaker, Dr. Jaideep Nang, for a very, very informative session. Dr. Aditi wants to know till what period of gestation is medical abortion approved in India? Till 7 or 9 weeks?
9 weeks. The initial MTP rules approved it up to 7, but then they were modified when the drug controller approved it up to 9 weeks. But there's a funny thing here. When the drug controller approved up to 9 weeks, okay, the earlier permission was given for the standalone mifepristone and misoprostol. If you remember, earlier we used to get a box, and in that box you used to get one blister pack of mifepristone and a separate blister pack of misoprostol. So up to 7 weeks you can prescribe these drugs, but the permission which is given till 9 weeks is given for the combi pack. Okay, so when you write a prescription, you must write a prescription for the combi pack rather than the individual pills. Okay, so between 7 and 9 weeks, the permission is given for the combi pack of mifepristone and misoprostol. Less than 7 weeks, individual packing. Of course, nowadays in the market, you don't get individually packed mifepristone and misoprostol. You get all of them as combi packs. But again, this is an interesting anomaly in the way things happen in our legal system.
Dr. Neelam from Ludhiana wants to know, does management of missed abortion come under MTP Act?
120% not. Please, I mean, if anybody ever tells you that a missed abortion should be included in the MTP register or anything, please write to us. We have a ready legal opinion on this, and we have sent it to several of our members earlier and managed to, convince the authorities that this absolutely is not an MTP. It is a missed abortion, which is a clinical entity, not an MTP at all.
Dr. M. Chandra Ponnuswamy from Namakkal wants to know, what is the procedure to do in pregnancy in an unmarried girl where the partner has ran away and she is more than 20 years of age?
So if she is more than 20 years of age, whether she is married or unmarried, as long as she is less than 20 weeks, the abortion can be done based on her own consent. You don't need consent from anybody else at all. It doesn't matter if she comes with her best friend or she comes with her aunt or uncle or mommy or anybody. The partner has absolutely no role in this. In fact, this is one of the few acts in our country where all the rights are given to the women. So even in any normal circumstance, you don't have to take nana, nani, kaka, kaki, dada, dadi, nobody's permission. It's only an adult woman of sound mind can consent by herself to undergo the MTP legally.
Dr. Bharati Lakshmi is joining us from Rajapalayam. She wants to know whether the police have to be informed if an unmarried major college girl at 20 weeks of pregnancy comes for an MTP.
So if she is less than 20 weeks, means 19.5 also, you don't have to inform the police because she is a major. She's an adult of sound mind. Whether she's college going or not is not an issue. The issue is about the age and the issue is about the gestational age. So if she is more than 18, not even 20, if she is more than 18 and if the pregnancy is less than 20 weeks, you don't have to inform the police.
Dr. Poonam Joshi from Rishikesh asked about a patient from a remote rural area. At a first checkup, it was found that baby has anencephaly plus neural defects. At 28 weeks of gestational age, has taken consultation at some places earlier. So how to go about it?
Okay, so this is a case, I mean, this is something which has caused confusion. I will not deny it. But, this is not a new situation. I mean, we have been dealing with this situation since so many years. Until, we didn't actually go to court seeking clarification. We used to just manage these as obstetric patients. Now, this is a 28-week anomalous child who has obviously got a lethal abnormality. The advice would be to treat this as an obstetric decision and induce preterm labor for this patient. Remember, induce preterm labor. This is not an MTP. Okay, so don't make the mistake of filling Form C or entering this patient in the register because you are not doing an MTP. what you have done is taken an obstetric decision to induce preterm labor, and by doing so, you will have a fetus which is born. Of course, this fetus cannot be treated as, a biomedical product or anything. If the fetus is born alive, you will have to look after the fetus till such time as it is there, and then that's the end of the story. Okay, so in this case, it's an obstetric decision, not an MTP.
Wonderful. Very well said, sir. I think it's a very relevant question also, because unless we talk about this, we will never get a clarity on how to actually go about it.
Absolutely.
Dr. Gopinathan from Cannanore, he asked, if a lady comes to the postpartum unit and she says that she has become pregnant due to a failure of a contraceptive method, is it mandatory for the gynecologist to perform an MTP, or can he or she deny?
Okay, that's an excellent question actually, because this speaks to section 3, which says that as of now, a woman does not have a right for getting an abortion. As of now, the abortion is provided when the provider thinks that there is an indication to do that MTP. Okay, that is why there are those two indications which are outlined in the Act. So technically speaking, a provider can say that I don't think there is an indication to do your MTP, although in fact there is in this situation because she's had a failure of contraception. So I will not say it's mandatory, but I think that as providers, it is our responsibility and our duty to provide abortion in the most dignified and safe way possible. So to that end, I would have to say that this is a patient who actually needs an abortion. And really think about it. At the end of the day, as providers, if we shy away from doing abortions, where will the women go? And there is more than enough evidence to show that a woman who needs an abortion goes and gets it. If she doesn't get it from you as a safe provider, she will go to an unsafe provider and have a morbidity or, God forbid, even a mortality. So I think, when we are so well trained, when we are able to provide the service, it's our duty to provide that service. Having said that, legally, under the law, even though she has an indication for an MTP, you are not bound to provide that abortion.
Dr. Mini Nambudri is asking us a question from Navi Mumbai. She wants to know, is there a need for taking the details of the partner as far as the gynecologist is concerned, in case of an unmarried couple who comes with the pregnancy?
Yeah. So if this unmarried girl is a major, and as I already said, of sound mind, then no, there is absolutely no need. Under the MTP Act, which, as I said, is not only an empowering act, but a protective act because of the section which talks about protection of action taken in good faith, you do not have to take anybody else's details except the details of the woman who presents to you. So if she is a major, that means more than 18 years old of sound mind, you do not need to take the details of the partner. Having said that, when I say this, I'm always told, but what if there is a complication? So suppose you are doing a surgical MTP, the patient is given an anesthesia and suddenly there is an anesthetic complication. Then, where do you go? Because now you are, left with this adult woman in the operation theater. There is no relative outside. So, in that broader context, if you would like to get the details, you are welcome to take them. But if you don't take them, it's not punishable under any law.
So many people have joined even from Jammu Kashmir. Dr. Prabhijit has thanked us for this wonderful session from Jammu. Dr. Yashodhara Madam from Gwalior wants to know, when a 16-year-old girl comes with an incomplete abortion, how to proceed?
Well, she has an incomplete abortion, and an incomplete abortion is not an MTP. But at the same time, if it is proven that this was a product of conception, this case doesn't fall under the MTP Act, it falls under the FOGSI Act. Okay, and again, this is where all that conflation and unintended consequences come into picture. So you provide the service, but you will have to inform the police that you have an adolescent who's had, an incomplete abortion. But it doesn't fall under the MTP Act. You're informing the police because of the FOGSI Act and not the MTP Act.
Thank you. Sorry to make Narendra Malhotra sir wait for a couple
Thank
of
you,
minutes. I have a lot of questions for him. Dr. Indra Bhatti from Jodhpur wants to know, what should be your responsibility as a consultant to stop over-the-counter sale of medical abortion pills?
Okay, excellent question actually. We stop them. very frankly, in my clinic. And one of the issues with stocking these pills is maintaining the records. Okay, if you would not like to maintain the records which are mandated by the drug controller, the easy way is to make sure that the pharmacy which is close to you stocks the pills, and you make a prescription. The patient goes to the pharmacy, gets the pills, and then you provide the pills. That's the easy way. But we find that it was not very comfortable for us in terms of confidentiality, because where we practice, it's a suburb in Mumbai, and a lot of the patients are sort of known to each other when they come for my consulting room, or the pharmacist may know them, and it's a closed community after all. So we stock the pills, we maintain the records which are required by the drug controller, but you could easily prescribe and have your neighboring pharmacy provide the pills on prescription.
Dr. Divya wants to know from Madurai, does sending the products of consumption under FOGSI Act for genetic analysis help the girl to spot the concerned guy?
Not really, no. It doesn't, because under the FOGSI Act, you are not innocent until proven guilty. It's like the PNDT Act where you're guilty until proven innocent. So, having these products of conception sent for a genetic analysis is unfortunately not going to help anybody at all.
Right. I think those were the questions, and a lot of appreciative messages from all around the country. So thanks a lot, Jaideep sir, for that wonderful lecture. Thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you to both the chairpersons, Dr. Sujitra Sudhir as well as Dr. Mini Balakrishnan.
Before I leave, I would just like to apologize in advance to Naren. Naren, I'll have to go for my OPD in some time, so I'll probably miss part of your talk, but I'm going to stay as much as I can.
You can see the recorded one.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. We'll send you the recorded ones to all of you so that you can enjoy the other person's lectures at your comfort. Thank you so much, Jaideep sir, for joining in. It's such a pleasure. And we will welcome you to Kannur once the COVID times get over.
It'll be my pleasure. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks a lot to both the chairpersons. And we move on to the much awaited second keynote lecture that comes from none other than a legend. The topic is circlage versus progesterone versus pessary, solving the dilemma in preventing preterm birth. And as the chairpersons, we have two very senior flag bearers of Cannanore O&G Society, Dr. Gopinathan, who has been the past president of Kerala Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and the vice president-elect of Kerala Federation for the next year, Dr. Jose. So I have also the privilege of introducing the wonderful speaker, the much sought-after person, and I can say has been a very supportive individual for me too on a personal basis. Sir is the professor at Sarajevo School of Science and Technology, the director, as you all know, of the Ian Donald School of Ultrasound in India, the vice president of WAPM, the World Association of Perinatal Medicine, director of the Ian Donald School of Ultrasound in India, the vice president of CEPHOG from 2019 to 2021, the past president of ISPAT and past president of ISAR, a member of the FIGO Guidelines Committee, a very important committee which lays guidelines related to our practice patterns. He has been the past president of FOGSI from 2008 to 2009, and as Shanta Madam rightly mentioned, one of the most loved past presidents. He was a dean of ICMU in 2008 and the past president of IFU-MB, National Technical Advisor for FOGSI, Government of India, MacArthur Foundation, EOC course, the managing director of the wonderful Global Rainbow Healthcare based at Agra, director of the ART Rainbow IVF based at Agra and Delhi. He's a practicing obstetrician, gynecologist and at Agra, a member and fellow of many Indian and international organizations, awarded the best paper and the best poster at FOGSI 5 times, the Ethicon Fellowship, the AOG Young Gynec Award. I think you're still remaining young, and that would have been years before. The Corion Award, the Man of the Year Award, the Best of Citizens Award, over 125 published and 500 presented papers, over 1,000 guest lectures given in India, abroad, and over 30 orations. Organized many workshops and conferences, as you already know, editor of 25 books, chairman of Smriti, the NGO, which provides a new level of care. and more importantly, a wonderful, wonderful orator, a much sought after speaker in most of the big conferences, and the entire family, including Jaideep Madam, who just was there with us at the beginning of the session before we went live, Keshav as well as Niharika. It's such a pleasure to have such an energetic family who's spreading positive vibes on an every minute basis, not just daily basis, every minute basis. You just have to follow four of them on Facebook, and you get whatever energy you require, especially during the toughest of COVID times. So with a lot of love, and it's a privilege to welcome you, Narendra Malhotra sir, for this keynote address at Reflections 2020 Part 2, the annual conference of Cannanore O&G Society. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for those kind words of introduction. My greetings to all of you, dear friends who are watching this from all over the country, and I believe some of them are also watching in London and in Afghanistan and in Dhaka and in Pakistan also. I just saw that. So thank you very much. What we're going to talk today is the story of preventing preterm births. What works? Progesterone versus omega-3 versus pessary versus cerclage. And let's see what works and where do we stand at all these places right now. So preterm birth, the earliest recorded preterm birth was Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton, he was born on 25th December 1642 when a widow gave birth to a premature male child, and he was so small that he could be put into a quarter of a mug, so 1.3 liters, and this infant survived to become Sir Isaac Newton. So that's what preterm birth is. But today you see it has worsened, and it has worsened even in the most developed country of the world. So USA and India record the highest of the preterm birth problem. It's not just the nutritional and the low socioeconomic state which we say it is. It could be something else about the preterm birth. So the stories and the crisis and the opportunity. Now when we look at the epidemiology, as per WHO, India of course ranks number 1 in the world preterm birth deliveries, and 13% of live preterm births are born in India. So that figure goes up to 3.6 million of them, and 23.6 globally, so it goes up to about 15 million births globally. Now, when we look at the IOM report, babies born before 32 weeks have the greatest risk of death and poor health outcomes. However, infants born between 30 to 36, which make up the greater number of preterms, are still at higher risk of health and developmental problems. So the preterm limit is 37. So 32 to 36 still risky, but below 36 very, very risky. And this has been taken from a paper published about 10 years back. So how do we define preterm births? 20 to 37 weeks or 36 weeks. Overall incidence 6 to 10%, spontaneously 40 to 50%, with prom 25 to 40%, and obstetrically indicated as we discussed in one of the anomalous child. If it is there with anomalies, you induce the preterm labor and don't call it MTB. The prevalence India ranking here, China and all, and even USA ranked. USA shows a great incidence. After Afghanistan, we are the one. So we have the highest number, but we rank second in the world after Afghanistan. We know that the risks are maternal, low socioeconomic, previous preterms, maternal age in extremes, premature rupture, multiple gestations, second trimester abortions, multiple complications, lack of prenatal care, and smoking. And the uterine causes are the uterine submucous, subplacental myomas, septums, biconvate, cervical incompetence. Fetal causes when the fetus dies inside, is growth retarded, and has congenital anomalies. And of course, placental abruption with an abnormal placentation, which may also lead to it. We have some infectious causes also: bacterial vaginosis, chlamydia, streptococci, mycoplasma, intrauterine infections ascending from the genital tract or coming through the placenta, or iatrogenic by the invasive procedures when we do amniocentesis or something like that. Extrauterine causes also contribute, which are fevers, like malaria, typhoid, pneumonia, listeria, asymptomatic bacteria, and pyelonephritis. And it's been noted that COVID infection is also leading to preterm births, though it has not yet been linked how, but it is seen that the preterm pregnancy with COVID infection have more preterm births. So the causes can be previous history, problems of uterus, infections, underweight, and high blood pressure. And twins, smoking, stressful life events, multiple miscarriages and abortions, and physical injury or trauma. How does this whole thing happen? It's very important to understand these because we're going to try to prevent it. So that's why it is. The common mechanism of action is that you have a uterotonic factor, you have a bacterial infection, or you have preeclampsia or preterm rupture, and this starts a cascade, inflammatory cascade. So the prostaglandin go up, pericatonic acid goes up, COX-1, COX-2, nitric oxide synthetase are activated, inflammation goes up, premature cervix is ripened by the whole process of prostaglandin like this, and that leads to preterm birth, the cervix opening. Now the clinical relevance for this is that tocolysis is unable to combat the pro-inflammatory agents or cytokines. So the fetal inflammatory response, if it is inflammatory, the tocolysis will not do anything. So it's useless giving tocolysis. Now this may in fact actually worsen the neonatal outcome by prolonging the exposure to a hostile environment of inflammation and infection. So the strategy for targeting the immune activation should be modulation of Th1 to Th2 bias, may be beneficial for both prevention of preterm labor as well as reduction of the neurological insult to the fetus. So this strategy might work. So the need of the hour is that we still do not have evidence-based preventive treatment available for preterm labor. And preterm labor is just simply known as labor before time. So we approach it in different ways. For diagnosis, you use ultrasound. For cervix, and if it is short, you apply a cerclage. For myometrium, we use uterine monitor or contractions, and we give them tocolytics. For membrane and decidua, we test for fetal fibronectin, and we give them antibiotics. For general measures, you give nutritional interventions like probiotics and omega-3, which may actually be helpful. So the aim for primary prevention is that the prevalence of premature labor by improving the maternal health so that she is not prone to it. So the general measures you will take is tell her to stop smoking, give her good nutrition, lower her workload, and don't give her stressful jobs, give her a relaxed, comfortable environment to work and a good family environment where she is not subjected to any domestic violence or any domestic pressures. So we can tell the patient to self-measure the vaginal pH for bacterial vaginosis. You have those gloves which come, and in the index finger there is a litmus paper, and when you touch that, the color changes and tells you whether it is leaking or whether it is bacterial infection. Very simple method, the patients can do it themselves. Then we measure the cervical length by TBS at 20 weeks, but now we are going to a cutoff taken at the NT-NB scan. And I wish this comes forward and we have a good data on prediction of preterm labor at 11 weeks, 6 days. And if you have that, then your tocolysis and your intervention can start at 12 weeks, and which would be much, much more helpful. Then of course, where there is a dilatation or repeated shortening of the cervical canal, you give a cerclage. And we don't now give a cerclage with silk or catguts or vicryls or anything. You give it with a Merceline tape, which comes to cerclage with a needle, blunt needle on both the sides. So this side you go like that, and this side you go like that and tie posterior. Or if you're coming like that, you tie. Or push the bladder up a little bit and tie higher up like a modified Sherrod curse. And then of course, coming into the pressure of the pharma, a lot of progesterone supplement is being given by everyone. Pregnancy has become one of the indications for giving progesterone. Patient pregnant, the first thing we start is progesterone. We will talk about it, but a lot of us do start. So let's see how we can prevent. So we will first do a sonographic assessment of and detection. And you see, you measure the cervix. Here's the anterior lip, posterior lip, and the longitudinal, and you measure the internal os. And if the internal os is dilated, you measure whether it is U-shaped or whether it is V-shaped. And you also measure what is the closed cervical length. Closed cervical length. Closed cervical length is very important because it will give us place for applying a cerclage. So if it's no closed cervical length is available, then you cannot apply a cerclage. So we do monitoring from 16 weeks onwards. If it is high risk, then we do it every week to see for cervical shortening. And if the cervix is shortening and it comes to 1.5 or maybe 2, then or 2.5, as per the guidelines, we apply a cerclage. So let's see the various stories which have come for prevention of preterm birth. The commonest is the progesterone story, and everyone's using progesterone right, left, and center everywhere. So previous singleton birth for preterm, 17-hydroxyprogesterone 250 milligram weekly can be adopted as a very, very good and safe. It used to be given in the good olden times, and then it got discontinued when the micronized progesterone pressures came, but you can still go back to once a week injection, which is quite safe. Then vaginal progesterone, which is better in gel form, but if gel is not suitable or comfortable to the patient, you give it in a soft gel capsule which dissolves inside. And now these comes with applicators also or without applicators also. So then we can, those who are discomfort with vaginal applications, you give them oral micronized progesterone. The micronization is very important because if you micronize the progesterone particles, the absorption is much better. Or you put them on progestogens like gestin or dihydrogesterone, which is equally good because it is anti-inflammatory, it modulates the TH1, TH2 ratio, and it makes the uterus quiescent, so soft. So they're equally good. So this choice of using which progesterone, which route, depends on you. Vaginal route with natural progesterone is probably the best. So we do a selective, we could opt for a selective screening or a universal screening for prediction of preterm labor. We first presented a paper in FIGO on this long time back in the Vancouver, in the previous American FIGO Congress, 10 years to 12 or 12 years back, and where we started screening universally all women from 18 to 24, including primary gravidas. And our cutoff was transvaginal cervical length of less than 2.5. Now, if it's less than 2.5, you have an option of giving them progesterone, suppositories, but there is no proven benefit of progesterone if it is twins or triplets. Or you could offer them, if it goes less, offer them cerclage. Let's see the second story. The second story is the Omega story. Now, Omega story is again come into vogue, and it all began with a small fishing island in Norway. And let's go and see what happened in this fishing island. So this study with Professor Olsen presented in Lancet, a randomized controlled trial affecting fish oil supplementation on pregnancy duration in 1985. So it's a long time back when we know this Faroe Islands located in Norway with a population of only 45,000 and no preterm births. The evidence is glanced, and then we did compare the evidence in the Danish, Norwegian, and the European studies, and it showed that fish eaters, consumption of fish, lowers the prevalence of preterm births, and as new as 2017, so 2 years back study. So suboptimal fish consumption in US, and that is why probably a developed country of US has a high preterm labor incidence. So that could be one. So the 50% of American women will met the European standard of DHA and were not taking it properly. So the risk of a low blood DHA levels are 10-fold increased the early preterm labor. And this data was analyzed from 91,000 women, pregnant women, where the low plasma levels of omega-3 free fatty acids, DHA, showed that it has a 10 times more risk. And the Domino trial, the DHA to optimize mother and infant outcomes, showed, however, there were fewer infants who were born preterm before 34 to the mothers in the DHA group. So less than 34, incidence reduced in the 2,400 odd patients they studied. So the recent guidelines, when I went to the Cochrane in 2018, the Cochrane review said that DHA supplementation in pregnancy or omega fatty acid addition during pregnancy would be beneficial. And there are about 70 RCTs conducted over 19,000 patients, women in pregnancy with giving DHA, without giving DHA, and shows that the incidence of preterm labor, very preterm, that is before 34 weeks, significantly reduced. So no more studies are needed to prove this. It's already proven, it's in the box, and it's everywhere too. So the evidence shows that DHA helps. And it concludes that, the Cochrane review concludes that out of the 70 RCTs, it reduces early preterm by 42%, reduces preterm birth by 11%, reduces perinatal death, reduces neonatal care admissions, and reduces birth weight. So here is one intervention, nutritional intervention, which could be started to all of them. And there is an invited editorial of Notre Dame, Australia University by Julie, which says all about omega-3 and its benefits. And the doses has to be correct. So 500 to 1000 milligram omega-3 required from 12th week of pregnancy onwards. 12 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, not the third trimester. And the Kudos study said that 600 milligram of DHA is good enough. And the conclusion was that if you give 600 milligram of DHA, it is prevention. The Australia study says you give it started from 12th week of pregnancy. And the Australian have also come up with a flyer and a guidelines, which is compulsorily given to all the pregnant women. And here are the flyers and the guidelines that please start using. What it does is, now PUFAs are found mainly in phospholipids, and maternal to fetal transfer occurs. So maternal triglyceride and phospholipids to the endothelial lining, free fatty acids, uptake by the placenta and transferred to the fetus. And when it transfers to the feto-placental unit, antagonist to the prostaglandin 2 series, decreases the arachidonic acid, decreases the prostaglandin inflammatory mediators, and inhibits contractions and delays the preterm birth. So this is how it works on the inflammatory pathway. We Indians, the vegetarians, and even the non-vegetarian eaters don't eat fish a lot. So we consume only 20 to 50 milligrams of PFUA or DHA, as the Indian Journal of Medicine Research shows in 2016. Very, very less. So is there an urgent need of ultra omega in India? As you can see, the reds, India, Canada, USA, Brazil, the reds and the orange do need it. So omega-3, there is enough evidence showing from all these studies. And so the fishy stories has a very, very happy ending and leads to healthier neonates and at-term births. What about vegetarians? The next question, I'm sure the question is already in the chat box. Those who are not eating meat, fish and all. Well, DHA is also there in algae. So you can have an algae plant source, and it is available in India. So you can have a DHA algae plant source. Now we come to the interesting one, and this is a trial which I've just finished, 50 cases in the world trial. And we are on the second phase of the next 50 cases. And the first 50 cases has gone for publication. This is a simple silicon pessary by Zarko Ariban, and it was given to me in Russia by one of the common ones who was listening to my talk, and he said, why don't you add the pessary story in your preterm births? So the pessary story got added last year. Now indications of cerclage, we know our history of first trimester, prior cerclage, cervical dilatation, prior preterm births. And cerclage depends on the cervical length measurement. We have just talked about it. Short cervix, dilatation of internal os, U or V shape, cervical length available to us about 1 centimeter. So we can apply a cerclage by a Merceline tape on the both side needle, a blunt needle. And here as high as possible. And if you need to push the bladder up, then you do a modified Shirokov. But the option to cerclage we have is the non-surgical, non-pharmacological management. So no progesterone, no cerclage. And these are given to physicians who dare to care and patients who will agree to this. So the cerclage sizes of the pessary, it's like that. There are some small holes here. There are 3 sizes available currently with us for a trial. It is not yet commercially available in India. Those of you who want to participate in my trial, I can give you 2 or 3, and you have to report back to me within 6 to 8 months what happened to your patient. And then, of course, we will let you order, and we'll try to purchase or bring this pessary by next year as soon as possible in India for commercial use. So cervical pessary, this is the man who invented it, and he published the first research in the preterm birth research centers, and you can just go to YouTube and have a look at all these good videos. The indications is short cervix, asymptomatic populations, singleton, twins, prevention, prophylactic. Because it's non-surgical, it's non-pharmacological, non-invasive, you can use it. Do not use it if the membranes are ruptured. Symptomatic preterm labor, that means you have strong contractions, vaginal bleeding, and where there is chorioamnionitis. Those are the cases where pessaries, cerclage will not work. Your conservative medical treatment might work for some time. So how do we insert? See, this is the silicone. This small video shows you in this dummy. This is a training which we carry on. You see, it's first you evaluate the size, and then you press it, apply a little bit gel on the area which will go in first, and this gel is applied. It's an OPD procedure, does not have to go into the OT. It is done in your OPD, on your OPD table. The patient flex. It's pushed behind first and then straightened. And then you check inside whether the cervix has come into this. So see how now we've done with the model, we brought out the cervix here. So it will go over this cervix. Like that, posteriorly we had entered, and when we reach the posterior fornix, we just gently put it up and slided it up. And then with the gently, you push it all around. So that's how simple it is. And those small holes are for any discharge which collects behind to drain it out. And if it slips out, which it will not, if it slips out, you just wash it and reinsert it. So it's as simple as that. So this is how we've been doing it, and we do it. Now, how do we remove it? You take the scissors, the episiotomy scissors, and you feel for it and just cut it and just pull it out. So we just cut it and pull it out when the patient goes in labor for removal. Because once the cervix dilates, then you might not be able to just pull it out. How to deal with the excessive secretions? Some secretions will be there. There are some holes. It will come out. And just ask the patient for a hygiene. Put her on probiotics for the normal vaginal flora to be great. So how do we do a scan, transvaginal scan? Now, transvaginal scan is first the probe as you goes in, and here is the cervix. So the cervix is jutting out of the pessary. Here is the pessary. So you can easily do a transvaginal scan on the cervix with a lot of jelly applied. And you can do all the maneuvers of sidewards, upwards, downwards, and start measuring the cervical length, and also see or confirm the cervical or the pessary is in place or not. So see how the transvaginal. So your probe should not be outside, the probe has to be inside. And then you will be able to measure the cervix and also have a look at the pessary or the shadowing of the pessary. And you can see up, down, whether it's there or it's slipped like that. So that's your scan, and that's how we are seeing it. Here is the pessary, which is there, applied correctly, because we are seeing it here as a shadow. Here we have just colored that shadow for you to understand that this shadow is because of the pessary or the cervical length measure. And then you measure the cervical length. And you see it improves in 90% of the cases. There are lots and lots of studies. It's a very, very old method which has been redefined by this new kind of pessary. This pessary cannot be used for prolapse. So don't confuse it with the prolapse. Can it be combined with vaginal progesterone? Yes, you can with vaginal progesterone and with the other things. Can it be combined with the cerclage? So if the cerclage has been done and the patient still shows shortening, then you can put a pessary over the cerclage. Or when you put the pessary is placed over the cerclage, and that is shown. We have 2 cases where we had to do this. We took out the pessary, put the cerclage, and then put the pessary back again. So that worked. Can it be combined with intramuscular progesterone? Very much, yes. When do we decide? At least 1 centimeter of closed cervix is needed to put the pessary. If it is fully dilated, bulging membranes, then it's only rescue cerclage will work or conservative will work. Nothing else works in those cases. Patient may decline or accept. That's her choice, and you have to give her the choice of cerclage, pessary, omega. Omega is added into all. You can take a swab at the time of pessary and vaginal swab, and if there is infection, treat the vaginal infection. How often to add progesterone? Progesterone in the same dose as you were adding before. Now, if a cervix with a pessary is progressively shortening, then as I told you, we had 2 cases in our 50. We took out the pessary, applied a cerclage, and put the pessary back again. So that's how we prevented that. Can you disinfect it? Well, it should not be used on any other patient. It's the same patient. If it slips out, you can wash and put it. It is sterilizable. You can disinfect it, but we should not be using it for a single patient use or single use only. Twins, triplets, yes, preventive, we can do it. Placenta previa, no problem. You can use it. You do not go to the interloss. You're only closing the external loss if there is no bleeding. See here. Now this is the pessary, transvaginal, and this is the cervix. After application of the pessary, how beautifully the cervix has closed down. So ladies and gentlemen, in these 4 stories which we have on preterm prevention, what do we follow? Adjuvants and nutrients, progesterone, ultra omega, pessary, tocolytics, probiotics, and cerclage. Pessary, and last and not the least and the most important one, tender loving care. Absolutely, it is required for prevention of all preterm labor. So what we are doing in our study is we are combining all the 3 stories for optimum results. We put all the patients on ultra omega and DHA. If they are vegetarian, algae source. If they are non-vegetarian, fish source. We put them all on probiotics from 10 weeks onwards. We add a progesterone to high-risk patients, 200 milligram vaginally, twice a day, or a sustained release if they can't take it orally. And we monitor the cervical length by serial scans from 16-week onwards. If the cervix shortens, then we put a pessary or a cerclage. That's how we do. So ladies and gentlemen, prevent babies being born too soon. I thank you very much. Thank you, Shaijas, for inviting me here to share this new treatment which we have, which you can offer to our preterm labor patients now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for that crisp and a crisp lecture with a lot of clarity of thought. From the time you brought out this video on Facebook, it always created a lot of curiosity on me. And as you know, because of the multifactorial origin, preterm birth is something which the entire world is trying to avoid, and people are obviously coming out with better and better options. Thank you so much, sir. Though virtually being a part of the Cannanore Society conference. Can I take in the comments from our 2 chairpersons, Dr. Gopinathan and Dr. Jose? I would unmute them. Jose, sir, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Jose, sir.
I can't see you. You put the camera on. Let's see.
Can you just put your camera on, sir?
Hello, Dr. Asha. How are you?
We welcome Asha, madam.
Lovely.
We'll be doing the next oration.
In group every day.
Yes. Jose, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but your video is not on, I believe. But doesn't matter, sir. You can go on with the comments.
Okay.
Chairperson's
Excellent lecture. It's a novel idea to have some mechanical method to prevent the preterm labor. I'm very much interested on this newer method. If there is a leaking, can we keep it there for some time, or is it necessary to remove?
Leaking is a contraindication.
No, after putting it. after we applying,
you have to take it out because you can trigger chorioamnionitis. It's a foreign body in the vagina. It can trigger chorioamnionitis. So we take it out.
Okay.
Okay. Very thank you for your informative lecture.
Can we take a few questions from the audience? Dr. Surya Kumari from Rajmundri wants to know, Narendra sir, there are many infections that cause preterm delivery. Is there one common test which can actually help you predict preterm labor?
So the first test, if there is a vaginal discharge, is that we do a pH test by the glove, and that tells you whether it is leaking or infection. And then you do a high vaginal swab, and you put it on a slide and do a gram staining and look at it. So you will know it is cocci, bacilli or candida. So you can figure out very simply, the simplest of tests. And then of course you can do a high vaginal swab culture for the antibiotic it is. And then manage it. But prophylactically, as I told, use probiotics in all women. So that would be a preventive measure.
Okay. Dr. Veena Vidyasagar from Bangalore wants to know why DHA is not generally administered before 12 weeks of pregnancy?
DHA has no role before that. A lot of people do come, now they have started adding DHA and folic acid tablet, and the people come and tell you that it will improve the fetal brain and fetal things like that. The prostaglandin inflammatory pathway comes after 10 weeks. So we start usually at 10 weeks or 10 weeks after 10 weeks.
Yes. A question from Dr. Roshan Gongal, who has logged in from Kathmandu, wants to know about the cost of the pessary.
The pessary is not available in India. It is right now available free with me, but I can give only 2 or 3 to whoever writes to me first. I have about 50 left. Our first phase study is complete. The second phase study will need 50 more cases from all over India now, because we've done in Nagra, all over India, Nepal, whatever. So we'll courier it to you. You just have to pay the courier charges, and provided you within 9 or 10 months you give me back your results of those 2 or 3 cases. And once we compile the 100 cases in India, then we are going to ask that company to make it available commercially in India. So right now it is not commercially available. So I don't know the cost. It's available commercially only in Germany.
Dr. Deepthi Sharma from Bulandshahr wants to know, can we put a pessary at 12 weeks?
Yes.
Dr. Anita from Madurai wants to know the role of tocolytics in a patient with surplus and how long to continue the tocolytic.
Which tocolytic you want to give? Actually, the only tocolytic which actually works is etosaban. Otherwise, giving duodenone sustained release, and of course progesterone. So yes, you can start them on progesterone, 200 milligrams 3 times a day, divided doses vaginally, or you can give duodenone and all, but I'm not very sure it works. If they are early pregnancy, you can give them injectable progesterone, and just tender loving care and rest is what is needed.
Dr. Manikya Rao from Kurnool wants to know, is there a role for the patient's position and hydration status in preterm labor?
Hydration, of course, in pregnancy is very important. Position now, hanging them with their legs tied up to the roof and making them lie with 3 bricks under their foot end, that doesn't work.
Dr. MC, but
only lie down with the legs up. I'm sure Asha will agree on that to me. I don't think that works.
Fine. Dr. MC Patel also has logged in for the program from Ahmedabad and conveys his greetings to you.
Welcome, Dr. MC Patel.
Question from Edapal Hospital in, there's no username is Edapal Hospital. They want to know, can vaginal preparations be a cause of uterine infections, and can it cause preterm?
See, you have to insert the vaginal pessary in a clean way. So yes, if your fingers are dirty, if you've just done gardening and come back and use the same fingers to put this thing, or you've just after going to the loo and washing and then you don't wash your hands and put it, yes, infection. Theoretically, yes, but usually.
So
Hygiene
emphasizing,
hygiene.
yeah, emphasizing the importance of hand hygiene, especially in this COVID times. Dr. Veera from Gwalior wants to know, is cerclage mandatory for an IVF twin pregnancy when cervical length is normal?
If the cervical length is short, then yes. Mandatory, some IVF chains are cerclaging every twin. No evidence of saying that cerclaging each and every multiple gestation. And if it is high order multiple gestation, I've seen they'll reduce the triplet and put a cerclage at the same time. Absolutely no, please don't do that.
Dr. Subaida from Calicut also wanted to know the same. Is IOT routinely indicated in twins? I think you have already answered that. She also wants to know what is the ideal time for placing a cerclage?
After 16 weeks. And then anytime, even at 25, 26 weeks, we have placed a cerclage and let the pregnancy continue for another 8, 9 weeks or 10 weeks.
Okay, fine. Now, Dr. Padmavati Naidu from Visakhapatnam wants to know, is there an increased number of encerclages that are being put in primies and your views in that, on that?
See, in our study, which we presented and which our paper got shortlisted for the award, we found surprisingly cases having short, and a few of them we did put a cerclage, but I don't think it's an indication unless the cervix is less than 2 or maybe 1.5. So my cutoff would be in primaries about 1.5, and the other multis and high risk it will be about 2.5.
Okay. Dr. Meenakshi Upadhyay has logged in from Sharjah. She tells us her appreciation of the entire program. She just wants to know from you on how long should progesterone be used when there is threatened abortion?
Progesterone actually has to be stopped at 12 weeks because the placenta takes over. Now, if you're going to use it to prevent preterm labor, 200 milligram up to 32 weeks once a day can be given for prevention of preterm labor, not for threatened abortions or any other indication. Only for preterm labor prevention, it goes up to 32, 34 weeks.
Okay. That exactly was the question from Dr. Lakshmi Kumari from Palakkollu. Dr. Archana Mehta wants to know how to clean the pessary before reinsertion if it has come out during urination. She's from Greater Noida, Archana Mehta.
Mostly it doesn't come out, otherwise wash it and sterilize it and clean it with betadine solution, and that's it.
Okay. I think as people are getting more and more used to menstrual cups, I think using pessary also is something which they will easily manage. Dr. Deepthi Sharma from Bulandshahr wants to thank you, Narendra sir, for this wonderful talk. Gopinathan sir from Kannur wants to know, in how many patients have you used the pessary till now and what is your result?
My personal experience, 50 cases and about 12 cases which have gone all over. I think one Dr. Inis is doing it in Cochin in Kerala, and some people are doing it in Kashmir, and there are about 5, 6. And I've got about 45 pessaries, and the medical college. Medical college Agra has given a thesis which I'm guiding, so another 40 cases are there. So our results have been very, very encouraging as compared with the cervical cerclage. They're probably coming the same. Some because it's non-invasive, so it proves to be better that way.
Okay, fine. Dr. Shalini from Malappuram wanted to know how we would sterilize it if it falls down. I think you've already answered the question. Can the pessary be used till delivery without any increased chances of infection? Was another question.
Yes, it can be. If there is unusually excessive discharge, vaginal discharge, please treat it, get a swab done, and treat the vaginal infection or bacterial infection. It can be used right up to delivery. It's taken out when the patient goes in labor or at 37 weeks.
Dr. Surabhi Dubey has logged in from Ahmedabad, wants to know if a patient with septate uterus has preterm birth at 26 weeks with labor pains, any role for a prophylactic cerclage in a subsequent pregnancy?
If the pains have started, contractions have started, there is no role. So if there are uterine anomalies or treated uterine anomalies like septum, unicornuate and all, then of course there is a role of cerclage or a pessary now. We've about 5 or 6 cases we've taken on that who had uterine anomalies, and we have put the Cerclage in 510 and put PESRI in 510, and we are following them up. They're doing pretty well with the PESRI as compared to the Cerclage.
Dr. Beena Kumari, who is the president of Kotte.
There is no indication.
Fine, thank you, sir. Dr. Beena Kumari, who is the president of Kotte O&G Society, wants to know your experience of the use of PESRI in twin pregnancy.
See, prophylactic, no. If there is high risk, yes, we do it. So we don't put Cerclage to all, we don't put PESRI to all.
Okay. Dr. Deepthi Sharma from Bulandshahr again wants to know how long we can continue probiotics in pregnancy.
Full time. And even after.
Okay. So those were the questions, sir. A lot of people have logged in from throughout the country, which is very understandable considering the popularity that you have and the energy levels that you bring into your lectures. Thank you so much.
All of us want to listen to Asha. That's why they've logged in.
So thank you so much, sir. Remain cheerful and energetic and keep spreading positive vibes as you have already always been doing, and please continue to do so, because I think the entire country is looking at you and your post, especially during this tough COVID times. So I think your mic is muted, I believe.
I will excuse myself midway between Dr. Asha because I have to do another webinar for FOGSI on vitamin D.
Fine.
So I will, after about half an hour, I will just log out. So
and very special regards from Cannanore O&G Society to the entire Malhotra family, to Jaideep Madam, Niharika, as well as Keshav. Please pass on our regards to all of them. Thank you so much, sir, for logging in. Thanks a lot to both the chairpersons, Dr. Jose and Gopinathan, sir, I think had some difficulty in logging in. So he was making his points through the question answer link. Now we have another important lecture to follow, which is the second Cannanore O&G Society oration. And it's a privilege that we probably would have done it on a very grand scale by welcoming Asha Madam to Kannur, but then circumstances force us to make it virtual. So I hope we will not reduce the grandness as well as the formality that we would go through before inviting you for an oration. Now, the chairpersons for the session are Dr. Ajit as well as Dr. Hari Prasad. Dr. Ajit, as you know, is the professor and head of the Department of OBG at Government Medical College, Kannur, been one of the leaders of the teams that have fought pregnant COVID patients. Dr. Hari Prasad is the senior consultant at Aston Mims Hospital at Kannur as well as Fatima Hospital in Kannur. My privilege to welcome both the chairpersons, Dr. Ajit as well as Dr. Hari Prasad, to the session, which is for the second Cannanore O&G Society oration. Now, let me just take the privilege of introducing the society on which this oration is named. Generally, it's named after individuals, but at Kannur, we always believe that the team or the group of individuals is much more important than any individual himself or herself, and a reflection of that is what you see in the oration being named after the society and not on the name of an individual. So as the president of Cannanore O&G Society, it's a privilege to welcome you all to this very special session of having the second Cannanore O&G Society oration today. Now, Cannanore Society, as you know, some of you would be knowing, it took its first step in 1995. It was by a team which was led by Dr. P.V. George and Dr. Muhammad Ali. Dr. Muhammad Ali is still a very active member of the society. At that point of time, it was named the Cannanore O&G Club. It had a very few members actually, but most importantly, they were all very active and they constituted the entire club. And in the year 2000, under the dynamic president then, Dr. Safia Shah, this Cannanore O&G Club became a society. And thus Dr. Safia Shah was the founder president, and she's still a very active member, and I'm sure she would be listening to this oration too. And we grew steadily in strength as well as in quality, both on the academic front as well as the social initiatives that you have done. A reflection of that you can see in my Facebook pages as well as the Facebook pages of our eminent members. We hosted 2 All Kerala conferences in 2006 and 2013. And if COVID allows us, we will be hosting the 2021 All Kerala Congress also in February 2021. In 2014, under the leadership of Dr. Gopinathan and Dr. Mini Balakrishnan, it got itself registered as a society and also started a charitable trust under its name. We always knew these few points, that we weren't part of a very big city, though recently we have an international airport now, but till then even conveyance was very difficult. So we always knew that drawing attention to our acts won't be very easy. We also knew that we had to do things doubly well to come into limelight and get noticed. And that's exactly what my team did over the last few years, especially, though the good work has been continuing for years together under the leadership of so many eminent people who have been presidents and secretaries of the society. And it's such a privilege to see that every upcoming office bearer, every new office bearer who took it up, brought more positive vibes and more energy into this society, and that's how this functions really well. I would honestly admit that it is such a beautiful blend of very loving seniors who are so very supportive. That's why young people like me are at the hem of this society, taking care of the proceedings. Otherwise, it might not happen in many other places in the country. So it's that kind of a big heart and the accommodative ability of our seniors which has brought this Cannanore society to this particular level, and that's what the society is all about. I would love to mention about 3 socially relevant projects which have been happening for years but have gathered more momentum in the last 3 years because of the wonderful team that we have at Cannanore. We have a project called Talir. Talir in English, if you expand it, it's been taken from the first letters of teenage health and living it right. If you take the first letters, you get Talir. Talir means a bud in Malayalam. That's a very wonderful project for the adolescent boys and girls which we have been running in collaboration with the teachers as well as the parents. It's a triangular project where we actually aim at all these 3 groups of individuals. Then we have Pratyasha, which is a socially relevant project for the differently abled children as well as their parents. We do programs now and then for the benefit of these children who really require the help of a team of doctors. Then we have the most wonderful Breast Cancer Brigade, a collaborative effort with an NGO named the Malabar Cancer Care Society in its fight against breast cancer, which, as you all know, is the most commonest cancer in women worldwide. And all the good work, the selfless work, the relentless work, the time that our members have taken out from their busy schedule to make it happen, have been recognized at national levels. We proudly have 3 national awards for the team and 3 national recognitions on an individual basis for its members in the last 2 years. And that, I feel, talks volumes about this very, very small society. The FOGSI Smriti Mailan Award of 2018 for Save the Girl Child activities. The FOGSI Dr. Durusha Youth Trophy in 2019 for the adolescent health activities, and the FOGSI Dr. Chitratara and Dr. Gangadharan Award for Preventive and Research Oncology in 2019, and the FOGSI International Traveling Fellowship 2019, the Wonder FOGSian Award, and Dr. Kamini Rao Oration was fortunately bestowed upon me. So this probably has been a reflection of the teamwork that has been going on in Cannanore society for years together, irrespective of whoever the office bearer were, and we have only gathered more momentum and more energy as we went on. So that's why we thought, much more than any individual, it has to be the society on which this oration has to be named. And that's how the managing committee at Cannanore came to a conclusion that it has to happen on the name of the society. The first Cannanore Society oration was given last year by the legend Dr. P.C. Mahapatram. And then for this year, we have another legendary individual who would be giving this oration, the second Cannanore O&G Society oration. So with this, I conclude my words on the intro on Cannanore Society oration, and I invite Dr. Simi Kurian, the Secretary of Cannanore O&G Society, an Associate Professor at the Department of OBG at Government Medical College, Cannanore, to introduce the orator.
Thank you, Tejas. It's my privilege to introduce the orator for the second Cannanore O&G Society oration, Dr. Asha Ritsingani. Dr. Asha, she is MD FACOG, Fellow of the American Congress of Obstetrician and Gynecologist. Madam is the International Ambassador for the Society of Maternal Fetal Medicine, United States. She is working as a full-time professor at 2 universities in the Department of Maternal Fetal Medicine, Albany Medical Center, New York, and University of Iowa, United States. Her husband is a radiation oncologist trained at Johns Hopkins as an immunologist with PhD. Madam is blessed with 2 sons and both are doing PhD. And as we all know, it's a tough time at New York due to the COVID pandemic. Madam has been working hard in the maternal fetal medicine department for the betterment of the maternal health. Her extensive level of knowledge and experience will be evident from her words. So let's listen to her. So with lots of love and pleasure, let me welcome Dr. Asha Ritsingani for the oration, Uterine Fibroids and Preconception, to operate or not to operate. Over to you, madam.
Before we move on to Asha madam, as the formality is to read out the oration plaque. So it has to be virtual, and we would definitely be handing over the plaque as well as the certificate when we meet you in person or by post once the COVID allows us to do so. So it is before the oration that generally the plaque is handed over. So I invite our scientific committee chairperson, Dr. Ajit, to read out the oration plaque for the second Cannanore O&G Society oration with the topic uterine fibroids and preconception, to operate or not to operate. Ajit sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is my privilege to award this plaque to Dr. Asha Ritsingani. It reads like this. This plaque is being awarded to Dr. Asha Ritsingani, maternal fetal medicine consultant, professor at Albany Medical Center and University of Iowa, USA, for delivering the second Cannanore Society oration on the topic uterine fibroids and preconception, to operate or not to operate, during Reflection 2020, the annual conference of Cannanore Obstetrics and Gynecological Society, Cannanore, Kerala, in collaboration with FOGSI and ICOG, dated the 6th day of June 2020.
Yeah, so that can be taken as a virtual handover of the plaque. Hopefully we get an opportunity to do it physically later on. So over to you, Asha madam, for the oration. I think all of us are eager to listen to you. Can you just, I shall unmute you.
Hi,
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Cannanore Society, Dr. Ajit, Dr. Kamini, Dr. Sajas. It's wonderful to be here. I was really looking forward to seeing all of you virtually. That's the need of the hour. So it's really a privilege that I've been invited to give this talk. It's, a little bit on the outfield. I'm so much into fetal medicine, but of course I also do maternal medicine. That's what I was trained at. And at Johns Hopkins, when my husband was there, we both were there. And it was great because we saw so many, and so I've been in it. And then I sort of moved to fetal medicine, but I still do a lot of maternal medicine. So this question keeps coming up. What do you do with uterine fibroids, especially when women come to you for preconception counseling? So in the US, many, many women come for preconception counseling, and then you see a fibroid, and then what do you tell them? Should we take it out? Should we not take it out? They are very concerned about it. And so we need to know in whom we should take it out and in whom we shouldn't. And I'll just show you one slide as we go along. And all that I want, if anything that you can take from this talk, is please do not take out fibroids. Vast majority you don't need to take out, no matter how big it is, unless there is a good reason to. So I'm going to go through the biology of it, the cellular biology, the molecular biology, the pathogenesis. So all of this pathology, molecular biology initially, it's so fascinating. And I'm sure you'll be totally fascinated listening to it. Hopefully, maybe you know about it already, but it's completely, totally fascinating. And once you realize what these little tumors do, then you will respect it more. And then you will realize that clinically, it's really not something for us to be so worried about and wanting to remove it, and that most of the times it's going to be just fine. So let me begin with some basics. Trying to get my slide here. So if you can just know that fibroid comes from one single cell. Each fibroid comes from one single cell. That's why it's called a monoclonal tumor. It's not a bunch of cells. It's one single mutated cell that keeps multiplying. And a majority of the women will be asymptomatic. So don't even really talk too much about it to patients, because then they start getting very, very scared, especially if they are preconception. You have to mention it, of course, to them, but in the same breath, I tell them, you know what, you have a fibroid, but it is so common, so don't worry about it. I just wanted you to know it, but don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. They want to hear that it's going to be okay, because in most people, it will be okay. So this is what I'm going to discuss: the FOGSI classification, basics, molecular, cellular, pathogenesis, and then clinically, how do we manage it? And of course, the infertility, because I think IVF and infertility is big in India. It's sort of big here, but it's far bigger in India. So many of you will want to know more about it. So I thought I'll put in the infertility part. And then when a woman gets pregnant, lo and behold, you find a fibroid, what do? Again, just tell her, don't worry, most likely it's going to be fine. And so the bottom line is, do not perform a myomectomy unless there is a good reason to do that. And we will conclude with that. So here is the FOGSI classification. And the FOGSI classification, as you can see, depends on if it is submucous, if it's intramural, or subserosal. Subserosal really is not a problem. Submucosal can become a problem because it stretches the endometrium. And there are 3 varieties of submucosal depending on how much it is jutting into the uterine cavity, completely, partly, or not that much. Subserosal, same thing. Is it hanging by a stalk? Is it a broader stalk, or is it a narrower stalk? So subserosal, don't even worry about it. Intramural is the one that may be something that you want to look at, and that is FOGSI classification 3. It's 0 to 7. It almost looks like they're splitting hair, but actually when you listen further, you will realize that, it's probably a good thing. So number 3 FOGSI classification is intramural, that is jutting partly into the endometrial cavity. So it is, the endometrium is on it with less healthy tissue between the fibroid and the endometrium, but the bulk of the fibroid is in the uterine muscle. And then there is an 8th one, which will be a combination of all of these. So a combination of maybe 2, 3, and 5. So it can, big, large ones that occupy almost the entire thing. The other thing the FOGSI has done is vascularization, and I didn't see a whole lot of literature on it in terms of clinical utility of it. Perhaps it is for people who may consider doing surgery, but so they call it not vascular, minimal color, moderate color, heavy color. In most patients, it'll be minimal. So it's not really much of an issue, but I thought I'd put it up here because FOGSI has classified it as such. So clinically, just the basics, how many people have it? So if you do hysterectomies and send it to the pathologist, 3 out of 4 times the uterus will have a fibroid, even if the patient got a hysterectomy for some other reason. So histologically, the incidence is higher. But if you look at a woman clinically, in your clinic, you will see it in about a third of the patients. So it's one of the most common tumors, benign tumors in a woman. A third of them clinically will have it. If for some reason you're doing an ultrasound, for some reason not at all related to her fibroids, you're doing it because she's infertile, or you are doing it because her periods are irregular, whatever, slightly more number of patients will be diagnosed with it, about 50%. And then you'll feel like, oh goodness, I did not even realize she had a fibroid. But it's okay. It's just an ultrasound diagnosis. So keep that in the back of your mind and then don't really do much with it. If you see younger people, they have less. As women age, they have more. In the US, very sadly enough, everything seems to affect the Black population, but they have a whole lot more. So when you look at age 35 to 49, 59% of the Black population will have it, and 43% of the Caucasian or the white population has it. I don't really know what the incidence is in India. My guess would be somewhere in between 40 to 60%. And then above the age of 50, a whole lot more will have it. Now, the thing is that if you have severe, just a second here. So if you look at these people, severe symptoms will develop only in about 15 to 30% of your patients. Majority of the patients will be asymptomatic. Those are the patients that you might clinically diagnose because they are coming to you with symptoms. So people can have either a single fibroid or multiple fibroids. So there's sort of a dichotomy. So we don't know why some people have just single, why some people have just multiple. But when you listen to the cellular mechanism, it might give you a little clue why that might be happening. So here are the cellular basics. Estrogen, progesterone, angiogenesis, apoptosis, these are regulators of fibroid. So when a fibroid is present, these hormones, the estrogen, progesterone, few other hormones will have some kind of an effect on the fibroid in regards to growth. And apoptosis just means that the cells die, not necrosis. Necrosis is the whole fibroid dies. Apoptosis is single cells will die and they will shrink with time. And who is at risk? Women without children, people who have had family histories. You will hear that 20% or so of these people, their sister, mother, somebody or the other in the family had it. Obese, more common. PCOS, more common. Diabetics, hypertensive. So all of your patients that are at high risk, for example, gestational diabetes or gestational hypertension, their risks are higher, their incidence is higher of having fibroids. When you take a fibroid out and look at it cytogenetically, about 50% will have some chromosomal deletion in the cells of these fibroids. A woman who is 35 and above has a very high chance, but again, remember, 80% will be asymptomatic. And my previous slide, I said between 15 to 30% will have symptoms, just ballpark, 80% will be asymptomatic. So note it and forget about it. And in fact, if you keep watching these people, in about 7 to 20%, they shrink or disappear. And I'm sure many of you have done pregnancy care of patients with fibroids and they come postpartum and the fibroid is not there. Happens about a fifth of the time, and you can swear that you saw the fibroids when she was pregnant, but now you can't find it because they do tend to disappear. They do undergo apoptosis and cell death. And so besides the estrogen progesterone dependency, there are other things such as the insulin growth factor. And the insulin growth factor in fibroids is a whole lot more than in the myometrium. So it makes the fibroids grow. There are also other growth factors. the fibroblast growth factors, the platelet-derived growth factors, the vascular endothelial growth factors that promote the growth of fibroids. And then in a woman, a menstruating woman, her LH, when it increases, such as in PCOS, the fibroids do tend to be growing, do tend to be bigger. And, and then over time there will be apoptosis. So how does this happen? How does one single cell transform into a tumor? That's why it's called the monoclonal development. How does it grow? How does it proliferate? I'll show you a few slides. Okay, I thought is somebody saying is any question? Okay, I'll keep going. So the estrogen, progesterone, there are stem cells on which there are some markers on the stem cells, some molecules on the stem cells, where this estrogen, progesterone can alter things. And I will show you the picture right here. You can see on top, the stem cells are facilitating growth of the normal myometrium, and the normal myometrial cells are pink in color in this case. So the progesterone works on it and it makes the myometrial cells grow. And these receptors, they are instrumental in the growth of the myometrium. Where is it important? In pregnancy. In pregnancy, there's a ton of progesterone. And then so many people get progesterone all the time. Dr. Narendra was just mentioning how you give 200 milligrams a day vaginally for people with short cervix or prior preterm delivery. And so the progesterone works on these receptors and it helps the myometrium to grow. That's why the uterus grows that huge. Imagine an organ growing that large, and then when the progesterone is gone, the myometrial cells decrease in number and the uterus comes back to normal size at 6 weeks postpartum. So the mature myometrial cells, there are receptors, estrogen and progesterone, both of them work, both of them make it grow. These receptors are concentrated in fibroid cells. So when the estrogen, progesterone in pregnancy increases, some of these fibroids will start to grow also, just like the myometrial cells. And that's why you will see an increase in size during pregnancy. But don't worry, because it doesn't really change the pregnancy management. Just keep it at the back of your mind. In the first trimester, as you know, HCG peaks at 10 to 12 weeks. Estrogen jumps up in the first trimester. So sometimes I will show you an example of that. You will see a sudden growth at the end of the first trimester, but then it slows down its growth after that. It'll keep growing, but it'll slow down. So here is a depiction. I don't know if my arrow shows up here, if I have an arrow, but you can see that these are normal myometrial stem. Can you see my arrow on the slide?
Yes, madam, we can.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So these are the mature myometrial cells, pink color. These are the myometrial stem cells. So the stem cells undergo changes and turn into these myometrial cells, and they are all normal. But this is a stem cell. What happens in the stem cells, this is the stem cells, there is this MED12, this is a molecule on the surface of the cell, and there is mutation of that. Just like your coronavirus has those little spiky things, this has little spiky things, and it undergoes a mutation. And when it undergoes a mutation, the cell that is produced is brown color. It is not your myometrial cell, but it is a fibroid cell. So when you look at it on a bigger scale, this is a normal myometrial cell that has mutated. It's still purple in color. When it mutates, it becomes a brown one, because now it's a precursor to all these brown cells, which are the fibroid cells. And then you can see here, the pink ones are the myometrial cells. These stem cells keep producing more and more of these brown myometrial, the fibroid cells, myofibroma cells, and you can see it grows in swirls, and that's how you get a fibroid, a round little fibroid, because it grows from the center, monoclonal, from a single mutated myometrial stem cell. And it grows and grows and grows and grows. So it forms sort of a pseudo capsule sort of where you can enucleate it when you're trying to do a myomectomy, if you're doing a myomectomy. This picture is from a New England Journal article about 5 years ago, or maybe 8 years ago. As you get older, everything is 5 years ago. So it's from that journal. Very beautifully, they have studied the molecular formation of these fibroid cells in the actively dividing. Then the fibroid cells start actively dividing and getting bigger and bigger. So how is it related to parity? You will see that in nulliparous patients, especially if they're older, there is an association. It doesn't mean that the fibroid caused her to be nulliparous, but women that want to stay nulliparous for whatever reason, as they age, it is a part and parcel of them developing fibroid. We saw earlier that 60% of women under the age of 45, 50 have fibroids. So these fibroids tend to increase, grow in older women. So if women are nulliparous, then of course you will see it. And so in nulliparous compared with the grand multiparous, it's 4-1, but we don't know that it's necessarily a cause and effect. If the nulliparity is a cause, the thinking is that maybe the ovarian estrogen, it's uninterrupted, and if you keep giving it, then it's going to cause the fibroid to grow, because fibroids have a lot of estrogen receptors. That's a possibility. So that has been theoretically guessed that maybe that's what's happening. And then if you look at very skinny women with PCOS, they have a lot of LH, luteinizing hormone, lot of insulin growth factor 1, and these we know promote the growth of fibroids. So in skinny PCOS patients, if you have a fibroid, do not worry, treat her PCOS, not her fibroid. So routine myomectomy, I've said this a few times, just because many patients end up with an unnecessary myomectomy, which then scars the uterus, and it's a problem. That's why I keep mentioning do not do it unless it's indicated. So most of the times fibroids will not affect anything, but sometimes it does affect the procreation in few people. It can lead to infertility. It can lead to reproductive pregnancy losses, recurrent pregnancy losses. It can lead to preterm labor, and sure, it can lead to obstructed labor. I have a picture on an obstructed labor I'll show you. So it can cause all of these. Most of the times it doesn't do anything. So what about the FOGSI classification? So the submucous, as you can see, this is the type 1, it's all hanging into the uterus, into the myometrium. This is type 2, type 3. So submucous can actually distort the endometrium, and the poor endometrium now does not have healthy tissue, or the pregnancy might go there, stick to it, and fall off. Sorry. Sorry, I get really bad allergies in spring. So when the uterine cavity is distorted, you can do a transvaginal ultrasound to see how distorted it is. But if she has never tried getting pregnant, then don't go removing it. Just leave it alone. If she comes to you for infertility, that's a different issue. What about the subserosal? This is the FOGSI classification type 3 and 4. So the 3 will stick into the uterus and the 4 will not stick into the uterus. So this is actually a 4 where the cavity looks perfect. It doesn't do anything. The uterine cavity doesn't even know there's a fibroid. So you will leave the type 4 alone. Even the type 3, mostly you will leave it alone. So this is an endoscopy and a hysterosalping, the sono hysteroscopy, histogram, sorry. You can see the fibroid hanging, a submucosal fibroid there, and on the sono histogram you can see that it's hanging up there. So intramural, that one that comes in contact, this is number 3. It's in contact with the endometrium. This can cause a problem. Of course, submucous, if it's hanging all over the place, it can, but we will focus a little bit on this one because most of those don't need to be removed. So what about infertility and fibroids? There are very, very few studies on this subject, and they do not support doing myomectomy to begin with. You have to do all of your other workup only if your workup is negative, 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 and you're like, oh God, now what do I do? Whoa, I found a fibroid, let me deal with the fibroid. Because fibroid may not be the cause of her infertility. So if you operate on her, she will not be happy because she still won't be getting pregnant. So do all of your workup because there are very few studies that will support doing anything to the fibroid. If you do ultrasounds on all infertile women, up to 10% will have fibroids on the sonohystogram. So very common finding. But if you work her up completely, you will notice that most of those patients have other reasons for infertility. Only in 1 to 2% of infertile women, you will then say, okay, maybe I think it's the fibroid. So your infertile patients, 98%, the fibroid is not an issue. 1 to 2%, it can be an issue if there are no other issues. Age is also a confounding factor. So here it again says, in a non-cavity distorting fibroid such as the type 4 intramural, which is not against the endometrium, do not take it out. How does a fibroid in the 1 to 2%, how does it lead to infertility? It reduces the blood flow or alters the blood flow. It causes inflammation of the endometrium. It affects the hormonal milieu. And so when the embryo nicely, happily comes there, the hormonal milieu isn't good enough for the embryo and it won't implant. Also, the uterus cannot contract properly, especially if it is submucous or type 3 intramural, which is sticking a little bit into the cavity. The sperm, the ovum interaction may not happen because this fibroid may not allow the contractility. And then when it does happen, this interaction and there's conception, the embryo may not be able to migrate, and that's what can cause infertility. Those are the possible mechanisms that have been proposed. So FOGSI classification 3 do appear to have an impact on infertility in women with no other causes, but it appears to be small and less significant when the endometrium is not involved. Why is routine myomectomy not indicated? Let's say the woman is 26, you take her fibroid out, and now she has a big scar on her uterus, big or little. You could have done it laparoscopically or laparotomy, but now she's not ready to be pregnant for another year or two. Guess what? It'll come back. Fibroids, remember, it's a monoclonal cellular tumor. And so there might be other such mutations, and most people will have other cells that are mutated, and those fibroids will grow. And then she will tell, you took it out and I still have them. What did you do? You know, they might think you're not a good doctor because it came back. You may not have taken it all completely. Do not remove it because it will recur. And also when people start to take these out, people can end up with a hysterectomy a third of the time because you make so many scars in the uterus. So here is a case. We had a 23-year-old young lady who came with lower abdominal pain. This was last, I believe it was August or September. No pregnancy, and her pregnancy test was negative. She came to the emergency room and she had an ultrasound because everyone with an abdominal pain gets an ultrasound, and oh my God, she has 2 fibroids. Now what do we do? Her fibroid is, you can see the largest diameter was 4.7 centimeters, and the other one was 3 centimeters, and they don't really describe where it is. So the FIGO classification description is important for infertile patients or patients with pregnancy losses, recurrent pregnancy losses. Otherwise, it's, they'll just say there are 2 fibroids. Okay, thank you. And, she has no other problems and her pains disappeared. And so we are not going to do anything. We won't jump in and say, oh my God, you should get it removed. No, that's not right. So here is her picture from, this was August 1. And so you can see this is the uterus, this is the cavity. This looks like an intramural FIGO classification 2, it's probably 3. 4, because here is the endometrium, it's at a distance from the endometrium. So I was incorrect. It's FIGO classification 4. It's intramural, but not against the endometrium. Just leave it alone. So now this lady is pregnant. She just came to us about 2 weeks ago. And you can see the fibroids. This is one, this is the other one. This is mom's bladder. This is her cervix, midline sagittal. This is the pregnancy sac. This is the fetus, 9 weeks. We congratulated her and we told her we'll keep watching her. We brought her back just a couple days ago. And here it is 2 days ago. And you can see it looks a little bit bigger, but here is the baby. Baby looks slightly bigger. It is still not very, very close to the endometrium. So we are okay. She didn't need it removed. She's doing good. How do we manage her? Are we going to do anything differently? Should we do ultrasounds every month? Should we do non-stress tests? Should we scare her that she's at risk for IUGR? You should counsel her, but please don't start doing non-stress tests and so on unless there is evidence of something going wrong. What do? I actually have them, if they're that small, that wasn't really big, it was like 5 centimeters. So I usually have them come at 20 weeks and then at 28 and then at 34, just to make sure that the baby is growing. But her fundal height, she's a skinny person. Fundal height is fine. You can measure the fundal height. She doesn't need to have monthly ultrasound examinations. And if everything is going fine, you're fine, she delivers, everybody lives happily ever after, she may be the 20% in whom it might shrink. So in pregnancy, most fibroids do not grow. So usually you will tell the patient, don't worry, in 90% of the patients, it does not grow. There is a 10% chance, maybe a 20% chance that it might increase. And if it increases, it'll increase small amounts. Few fibroids will increase big amounts. So to keep measuring and saying, oh, it's 5, oh my God, it's 6.5, oh my goodness, now it is 7. She will get frightened and it won't change anything. And then her trust starts to decrease in the obstetrician. So just tell her, I expect it to grow a little big, maybe, most likely not. And if it does, do not worry about it. I will see you back at 28 weeks. This is at 20 weeks, we'll tell her that. If the fibroid is behind the placenta, that's when you get more worried, because that placental attachment is not necessarily very good. So in some people, it will cause a miscarriage. If it is really totally close to the endometrium, the type 3 intramural or subserosal definitely can cause miscarriages. It can cause growth restriction, but it has to be large and smack behind the placenta to give the placenta poor blood supply. This placenta may not attach as well and it might abrupt. She might bleed, she might go into labor, and if she abrupts, the baby could die. How often does it happen? Not very often, but that is a possibility. So you can sort of tell her that there's a slight increase in risks, bleeding and labor. So why don't you come to me if you have any spotting? I need to see you. But again, do not scare her. Background risk of abruption in the general population is close to 1%. With the fibroids, it's maximum, I don't even think it is 5%. With preeclampsia, it's 5%. So it is less than 5%. So no need to scare her, but warn her to see you if she is going to have any bleeding. Postpartum hemorrhage is twice as common. Its background, I think, is about 5-ish%. There's a little more, only because If it is near the endometrium or the decidua, the uterus may not contract properly. So in pregnancy, people can experience pain if it is greater than 5 centimeters. They can, most will not. 10% may experience the red degeneration. If a patient comes to you with acute pain, scan her and see if it is going through a degenerative procedure or is it a subserosal one that is undergoing torsion. So when you see red degeneration, you will see the center part liquefy because this is like a necrosis. And so it liquefies. You will see blotches of black, blotches of white, and it doesn't have the usual homogeneous texture of a fibroid. And the appearance on the ultrasound keeps changing every couple of days depending on how much necrosis is happening. So usually if they come in acute pain, I scan them. I'll see where the fibroid is. I will ask them to show me with a finger where her pain is. And then if it's on the fibroid, I push the fibroid with one finger. And if she says, yes, that's the pain, then I know that it's going through red degeneration. If so, give her the treatment, which is something like indomethacin you can give for 48 hours. If it's early in pregnancy, if she's 32 weeks or beyond, don't use indomethacin. But you can give indomethacin. Before that, you can try your paracetamol, you can try codeine. And if that doesn't work, you can give indomethacin. My threshold to giving indomethacin is lower, especially since most of these people show up before 20 weeks. We see for some, black population has it a lot. So we see enough red degenerations. And so right off the bat, I'll just say, just give it because it's inflammation that's hurting her. So you want to give her the indomethacin. They can even develop fever, high fevers like 101, 102. But if the uterus is not tender elsewhere, only on the fibroid, it is not chorioamnionitis. You have to make sure that you put the ultrasound on her belly, see where the fibroid is, and then push on the fibroid. And in a skinny patient, you can feel the fibroid anyway. You don't even need to do an ultrasound. But if it is tender there and she has 101 and she has not ruptured her membranes, no other risk for chorioamnionitis, then the fever is from the red degeneration and it will go away. So these are the treatment options for a fibroid. Forget the pregnancy. These are pure and simple fibroids. 60% of your patients have it. Are you going to treat them? If the woman has bleeding, she may need treatment, or if she has got bulk symptoms where it's pushing on her bladder and she's going to bathroom every 1 hour, then she may need the treatment. These are the only two, if she's symptomatic. If she's not symptomatic, leave her alone. So if the patient is bleeding, if that's her symptom, and they are mild symptoms, then depending on how bad they are, you may or may not want to do a myomectomy, but if her symptoms are enough, then you will do a submucous myomectomy. These are submucous fibroids. If she has very mild symptoms and she's trying to get pregnant, then she could be allowed to get pregnant. If it is not a submucous fibroid, she could be allowed to get pregnant. And then you will advise her to try for 6 months, see what happens. If it is not helping her, then maybe you might want to do a myomectomy because now she is symptomatic, she is not able to conceive. If she's an older woman, most of these people will be a little older. So maybe you could wait 6 months. If it's a younger patient, please wait a year. Don't jump into doing it. And not to do myomectomy because it's going to scar her uterus. If it is bulk symptoms and it's mild symptoms and she is wanting to get pregnant, tell her to get pregnant. If she is not wanting to get pregnant currently but wants to wait, then you do not use medical treatment if she's trying to get pregnant, such as Lupron or GnRH agonist. But if she says, no, I'm not getting pregnant now, I'm going to get pregnant after a while, but this is so big, it's really bothering me, then you can use the GnRH agonist and try to shrink it if she's going to wait for more than 5 years, then you may consider myomectomy if it is very symptomatic, or you can even do an ablation. So this is a patient who came to us. She has a FOGSI classification 3. As you can see, this is a fibroid. It's a giant fibroid. This is her placenta. This is her amniotic fluid. It's right up against the uterus. She's doing fine. She's in her 3rd trimester. So we are not worried. I just do ultrasounds on her every month because her fibroid is so huge. I cannot tell if the baby is growing or the fibroid is the one that we are measuring. Her fibroid has been big all along. It hasn't grown too much, but it's giant size. Some of these people, she I think has 3 or 4 of these big giant fibroids, but we don't take it out because she never had a problem. She didn't have miscarriages. She didn't have bleeding. She had no problem. So we left it alone. Here's a placenta. It's pretty close to the placenta. So that's why I do. So you can see her fibroid is about 15 centimeters by 10 centimeters. And the 3rd dimension was similar. So very large. It's in the fundus. So we leave it alone. Here it is in black and white. Same thing. It is 16 centimeters. So here is the baby's head. You can see she's 31. She was 31 weeks. Now she's probably, I think, 33, 34 weeks. But here is the baby's head. Here is the placenta. The poor placenta is getting squished by this. So we have told her, if you bleed, if the baby doesn't move too much, please come. We'll need to see you because the placenta might start to abrupt. But guess what? Most 95% and greater will not have abruptio. So she should not worry. You will be worried when you do her delivery because that's when she is at risk for postpartum hemorrhage. So if it's more than 3 centimeters and it's right up against endometrium and the patient has been infertile and she's coming to you for IVF, then what do you do? If it's less than 3 centimeters, don't worry. But if it's more than 3 centimeters and you have worked her up and worked her up and worked her up, nothing you're finding, then you can say, okay, the implantation may be low, the pregnancy rate may be low, live birth may be low. In that case, you might want to treat her if you don't find anything. So non-cavity distorting fibroids do not affect anything, but if it is affecting the cavity 3 centimeters or more, then in patients undergoing IVF or FOGSI, it may affect the implantation in an IVF patient. These are the pictures you can see. This one is the mixed one, type 3 and type 4 and type 5 all put together. So the reason to not do myomectomy is if you do a myomectomy on an asymptomatic patient, you're going to spoil her endometrium potentially, which can lead to endometrial damage and an accreta in future. It causes adhesions and it can also cause unfavorable obstetric outcomes. And then when do you do a C-section on her? Because they will all need to be delivered by a C-section if you have done a myomectomy. And then the C-section, typically, you want to wait until 38, 39 weeks. There is no data to show that they should be delivered at 36 weeks. So you would deliver a myomectomy patient at 38 to 39 weeks, depending on how extensive it was. So whoever has done the myomectomy, or if you have done it, then if your incision was from fundus all the way down to the cervix midline, 3 incisions, then you may want to do her delivery at 36 weeks after giving her steroids. So the recommendation is subserosal has no impact, leave it alone. Submucous, if it is small and if there is infertility, unexplained infertility, only then you can do a hysteroscopic excision in these infertile patients. And the intramural one, which is abutting against the endometrium, you will do excision only if she has unexplained infertility. So no myomectomy unless there is unexplained infertility. Myomectomy not recommended for intramural that are not touching the endometrial cavity like the patients I showed you. It's not touching. One was 5 centimeters, one was 15 centimeters, but it wasn't distorting the cavity. We left it alone. They are nice and happily pregnant. In the preconception, it can cause problems if you do surgery. So avoid those surgeries. And I think that's my last slide. I'm sorry if I went over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Asha Madam. Always a pleasure to listen to you. From the chairpersons, Dr. Ajit and Dr. Hari Prasad, any comments? Ajit sir?
Since it is an oration, we are not supposed to ask a lot of questions, but it was a very nice presentation. And especially, we get a lot of requests from patients to do a myomectomy prior to planning pregnancy. So we get a lot of, even when the doctors sent us patient for a myomectomy. So it is an eye-opening talk from you.
Thank you. Yeah, the literature is so sparse. There's really no literature to support myomectomy except in unexplained infertility. Go ahead.
Even if we are doing the routine investigations like hysterolaparoscopy for infertility, if you are seeing small fibroids not at all distorting the endometrium is very perfect, we are not doing any myomectomy for that patient.
Yeah, good. Yeah. That's the recommendation based on maybe, there are so many fibroids and so many doctors in India. You all should be doing so many studies, and then you can do a randomized trial on this. It would be awesome to do a nice big study. But the whole problem is then some poor patients will end up with a myomectomy, and that wouldn't be very good if you randomize it. So anyway, you would have to think about all kinds of options.
Prior to IVF, what is your recommendation? Prior
For
to
IVF?
Yeah.
If they have other reasons for which they are infertile and you have taken care of the other, hypothyroidism, diabetes, whatever the case may be, anovulation, then it should not be removed. But if she has no other indication, she keeps trying and trying and trying, and it's not getting pregnant, or if she keeps losing the pregnancy recurrent, then you will go in and take care of it. We have so many fibroids, it's incredible. I don't do C-sections on them. I've done my time. I tell my colleagues, you do it, because after the C-section, these people may not contract and they bleed quite a bit. So I don't like to see blood. So I let my younger junior faculty do the C-sections.
One second, actually, there's one person who's not muted. One second. Yeah. I think since by rule, generally oration doesn't entertain questions, I think we will ask Hari Prasad sir to read out the oration certificate. And after that, since there are so many questions that have come in, we'll just get in madam to have her opinion, so that once we finish the session on oration. Is that okay, Ajit sir?
Yeah.
Fine. So can we request Hari Prasad sir to read out the oration certificate?
Let me read out the oration certificate. The second Cannanore Obstetrics and Gynecological Society oration for the year 2020 has been conferred to Dr. Asha Singhani, maternal and fetal medicine consultant, professor at Albany Medical Center and University of Iowa, USA, for the topic uterine fibroids and preconception, to operate or not to operate. By bestowing this oration on her, we acknowledge the contributions made by her in the field and for being an inspiration for generations to come, to dedicate their efforts towards patient care. Wishing her many more years of clinical excellence. Dated the 6th day of June 2020, signed by Dr. Shaijas B., Organizing Chairperson of Reflections 2020, Dr. Ajitas, Scientific Committee Chairperson of Reflections 2020, Dr. Sumi Kurian, Organizing Secretary of Reflections 2020. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was a privilege. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the oration session, but we will still take in a few questions because there are so many people who have logged in from around the world, in fact. We have Dr. Shalini from Malappuram, Dr. Lakshmi Kumari from Palakolu, Dr. Professor Poonam Singh from Moradabad, Dr. Remya from Kozhikode, Dr. Yashodhara Gaur from Gwalior, Dr. Promila from Gurgaon, Dr. Shubhanki Sonkar from Delhi, Dr. Sangeeta Kamra from Bhilai, Dr. Padmavati Naidu from Visakhapatnam. Now, some of those questions were for Dr. Narendra Malhotra, which unfortunately he has logged out and we are unable to answer that. But then we will take in your questions, madam. We have
I mean, if
people
there's a cervical question, I'm into the cervix. So if it is something, the thing is we do differently. We don't put cerclages past 23 weeks and 6 days. So there are some differences, but the cervical length is something that is a big thing in our division.
Okay. There's Dr. Trina who has logged in from Kabul in Afghanistan and wanted to know actually from Narendra sir about whether we can use cervical pessary in multiple pregnancies. I think he has answered that question already. I mean, there are no contraindications as such for twin pregnancies. Dr. Ritu has a question. Dr. Ritu is from Dehradun has a question for Asha madam. Just wanted your final word about junctional zone in fibroids in infertility patients when there are no other causes of infertility. Remove it or not?
If you have done a workup and you cannot find any other reason for infertility, and there is a submucous fibroid or the intramural fibroid that is distorting the uterine cavity, yes, then you can remove it. Try to remove the submucosal fibroids hysteroscopically, but that's when you would want to remove it because everything else is negative. And it's been over 6 months at least.
Dr. Manju Patidar from Indore wants to know if red degeneration occurs in a fibroid in pregnancy and patient is symptomatic, how will you treat?
So those are the patients, they can have severe pain, like real severe pain. They can have fevers. So you will just do symptomatic treatment. That's it. Nothing else. So bring her temperature down with your Crocin. Give her maybe pethidine. Demerol is pethidine. You can give her some narcotic for pain, or you can give an anti-inflammatory for 48 hours if she's under 32 weeks. So we usually use indomethacin for 48 hours. That's my first line because it works like a charm.
Have there been any circumstances where you have thought of an antenatal myomectomy?
No, but I know you have done it, right? And I told you to publish it. You took out like 20 fibroids on a patient and I told you to publish it and you haven't because I looked up the literature. It's not, your paper isn't there.
I think there are many more who have some scattered experiences about, having to do it when everything else seemed to have failed, even opioids when they have failed. So what is your take on it? I mean, not about the scattered experiences, but your take on, has there been any requirement to think of a myomectomy when other measures have failed when patient was symptomatic?
You know, there are some case reports scattered through the literature, but just a case report. So there are no big studies as such. Have we ever done it? No. And I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never seen that happen. That's why when I saw yours, I was stunned that you had taken out so many. And that's when I looked up the literature, but just, you know, single case reports. So if you know even of 8 or 10 cases, we can compile the data as well as the pregnancy outcome and we should publish it.
Dr. Ritu from Dehradun wants to know if we are using a GnRH agonist for treating fibroids, how many doses maximum we can give?
Oh, I don't do GYN, so I really don't know. But I know that they give it monthly for at least 3 months to shrink a fibroid. I don't know if people give it more than 3 months, and it's a temporary thing. It's just like a Band-Aid. It doesn't really take care of the fibroid. If somebody is really hemorrhaging a lot with the periods, hemoglobin is 6, you want to do surgery, she's not pregnant, she's 42, her tubes are tight, then you may want to give it to her monthly for 3 months, at least that's what we do here, and shrink the fibroids, her bleeding will stop, and then her hematocrit comes, her hemoglobin will come up to 11, 12, and then you can do surgery on her. Or, you know, not surgery, but they also nowadays do uterine artery embolization.
Dr. Manju Patidar from Indore wants to know, can we remove a fibroid during LSCS? I mean, it's pretty much routinely done in India. What is your take on it as far as evidence goes?
Yeah, it's not recommended because it really increases the hemorrhage risk. So if you have a fibroid that is dangling, a subserous fibroid that is dangling and you're worried it's going to undergo torsion, go ahead and take it out. But if it's an intramural where you have to make a bigger incision, not your regular C-section incision, but a bigger incision, then don't do it because it might shrink and disappear postpartum. 20% chance it's going to shrink and disappear. So no need to take it out. If it comes in the middle of your incision, you're trying to cut and there is a fibroid sticking there, sure, take it out. But don't go looking for it. If you see it elsewhere, just leave them alone. Say hi and then leave them alone. We see so many of these big ones, you know, and it's like, quickly close her because it's scaring me. But you don't take them out because she will hemorrhage. You will need 10 units of, you know, she'll end up in an ICU. You don't take it. And if smaller ones are not bleeding and you're taking out, guess what? They didn't need to be taken out.
Wonderful. I mean, this contrast in the perspectives is so good to listen, actually. I think, all those people who tend to operate more when there's a pathology, we'll always have to listen to people like you so that finally we take a middle path and operate what is required and not operate what is not required. Dr. Promila Malik joins us from Gurgaon. She says it was one of the best orations that she has ever heard. So congratulating you for the excellent oration. Dr. Hemali Sinha has joined in from Patna. She says that it was a very elaborate one. Pathophysiology behind fibroids was very, very well explained, and very clear recommendations on how to go about. So big congrats to you, madam. Dr. Ritu wants to know from Dehradun, if we are planning an IVF for bilateral tubal block with a junctional zone fibroid of 3 centimeters, should we remove the fibroid or not?
If you think the fibroid is the cause of the infertility and that it is really blocking the tube, yeah, you could do that. But if it's not blocking the tube, and it's not really causing her any other symptoms, then you can try to let her get pregnant. And if she miscarries, unfortunately, you know, let her know she's at high risk for complications, because if you don't take it out and she miscarries, she's going to blame you. Patients love to blame doctors. So then in that case, just tell her there's a fibroid and I'm going to be conservative and I'm not going to take it out because most likely it won't do any harm. But if you miscarry, then sure, we can do the surgery. It's a bigger surgery. We can do it at that time. However, if you think that it's blocking your ostium and you need to remove it for tubal factor kind of indication, then sure, you can take it out.
Madam, do you have 10 more minutes? Because there are a lot of questions pouring in.
Yeah, you can ask me. Yeah, I'm on call, just so you know, I'm on call. So I'll be happy to. Yeah, I actually just texted them telling them I'll join you all in a minute. They're waiting for rounds, but that's okay. They said they'll wait for me, not an issue. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege.
Yeah, people are.
And I also want to welcome the young doctor from Afghanistan. It is so nice.
Exactly. In India, probably people are in a weekend mood, so they are in a mood to ask questions. There are so many coming up in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Lavina Prem Kumar from Madurai wants to know, a large intramural fibroid in the posterior lower segment, 9 into 5 centimeters. In a term pregnant patient, head fixed, do we deliver by cesarean section? If she is post dates, can we induce?
So, you know, hopefully most patients will not go post dates because it's an inflammatory process and patients will deliver by their due date. But when you look at it, like the first case that I showed you, the 2 fibroids were right next to the cervix. As the uterus gets big, you'll notice the fibroids are moving away. So the head will get a chance to come down. And your hope is to do a vaginal delivery. C-sections are, I hate C-sections and fibroids only because you can end up with more complications. But if the head doesn't fit and you think there is an outlet obstruction base or inlet obstruction, depending on where the fibroid is, based on your ultrasound, look at the picture, because sometimes people will miss misquote where the fibroid is, but if it is really blocking the pelvic inlet and it's a posterior fibroid, sure, do the C-section anytime starting 39 weeks.
I have a question myself to ask you. All of us thought along similar lines about a cesarean section and a myomectomy being combined together. I'm asking, does operating more and achieving the ability or the skill to tackle the extra blood loss by operating more of those cesarean myomectomies, does that change our perspective as we move on?
Yeah, so, maybe you're a far better surgeon than me. And
no,
so,
I don't.
No, but that's very true. I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. I'm more into fetal procedures, but, I bet you that I have so much respect for the Indian doctors because surgically they are brilliant. Oh my God, they're so good. So I bet you that you have learned a way to quickly do it without causing excessive blood loss. But if each time you're doing it and the blood loss is a little more and the anemia postpartum is a little more, or you have had to do more transfusions, I would say don't do it. If it's not in your way, don't do it. If it's blocking your way, remove it. But if it's not in your way, leave it alone. Hope that it will shrink. I had an Indian patient, she was a PhD of many years ago, over 20 years ago, and she had multiple fibroids. And so we ended up sectioning her because of, she developed severe preeclampsia. She was older in, I think, 38, 39. Anyway, when she came back 6 weeks later, not a single fibroid. And I couldn't believe it. So I went back and I looked at the picture, and she had wanted me to follow her. So I was personally following her. It wasn't the residents, it wasn't the fellows. So I know that she had fibroids. I have pictures of that, but postpartum, there was nothing. And it was really very humbling how this just disappears. So that's one of the reasons not to remove. If patient is not symptomatic, don't remove it.
Yeah.
If it's in your way,
totally.
remove it. But, compile your experience. I really urge doctors in India to compile your experience and publish it, because there is not much in terms of publication regarding, there's really very little myomectomy during C-section, almost nil in the literature.
To absolutely respect whatever point you told now. The point of me asking was absolutely not to compare the surgical skill of Indians versus the other people. I was just asking whether because probably 10 years before, maybe 5 years back, when somebody would have told us to be really on guard while doing a cesarean myomectomy, we would have totally followed that. It's not about me. It's about a perspective which majority of people follow here. Almost all people with reasonable amount of experience. Not just leave apart the fresh graduates who have just passed out and finished their gynecology. Something talking on behalf of everybody else who has got reasonable surgical skills doing myomectomies even otherwise. I think, and people also cite experiences of ending up with a postpartum urinary retention of a fibroid which was left alone during pregnancy and having to operate upon her probably a week or two later after a cesarean section for significant amount of urinary retention. The other way of management obviously is putting her on prolonged catheterization and managing it without a surgery, but have had to operate. Now, I do understand that is not a reason for indication for cesarean myomectomy, but maybe when people start doing more, and as you told, as we compile experiences, maybe we will have a little bit more relaxation on which fibroids to operate during a cesarean surgery. Dr. Pramila Malik.
So the big large one that you saw, would you operate on that one? She had 4 of those.
Yeah, I think probably, yeah, I'm again talking not about myself, talking on behalf of all those people who do cesarean myomectomies. I think we have a very definite way of tackling a fibroid at a cesarean section. So, these problems of even an extra bit of transfusion is no more there. Maximum what we do when we find that there is slight excess of bleeding, we do a uterine artery ligation bilaterally and tackle it, just like we would manage for any other uterine bleeding after cesarean delivery. So that's how we tackle it. So, a lot of ways people have used vasopressin, other people depend on bilateral uterine artery ligation. Some people do it routinely whenever they do a cesarean myomectomy. I'm not talking about myself, talking on behalf of everybody who does a cesarean myomectomy. But wonderful. As I told, I really appreciate your concepts. I think when somebody else tells us to be on guard, I think only then we would take a guarded approach. And that's very important, actually. So,
so you know this, I'm going to actually this, you're the president of the association now. You will write a paper during your tenure because that needs to be published. If a big uterus, a 9-month pregnancy with large fibroids didn't cause urinary retention, I'm not sure why it would postpartum. That's just one single case, and women after C-sections have retention all the time, depending on how much they push and so on and so forth. So one case doesn't, it's just an anecdotal case. But you have so much experience, I really think you should publish it, and I'm going to, you know, get after you. Because that needs to be published. There is no publication. And the person I have, that big fat fibroid, he does a Krita surgery. So I'll always tell him, Peter, I have a case for you. He's a senior guy, and so he will do it. And he goes in and out within, you know, 35, 40 minutes, he's in and out, no blood loss, no nothing. Patient goes home and everything is happy ever after. But I think your experience in terms of postpartum complications or blood loss will be very, very valuable to the medical fraternity, the entire, all over the world.
Asha madam, Ajit sir has published a paper on cesarean myomectomy. I think Ajit sir has something to say about this.
Sir, see, what we find is that cesarean myomectomy is very easy, even easier than doing a non-pregnant lady. The bleeding will be less, the pain you get better. The only problem is sometimes it will be a degenerated thing. So to take the fibroid out, it takes some time. That is all. And again, only if it is indicated, we go for the uterine artery ligation, sometimes rarely internal iliac artery ligation. But most of the time, we don't require much blood transfusion or anything. It's quite easy to do it.
Vasopressin, sir?
Vasopressin also we rarely use because most of the time the bleeding is less compared to the non-pregnant myomectomy.
Any
so
saline
how do you choose the case? In whom do you do a myomectomy? In whom don't you do?
That is a very important question because all fibroids we don't remove. Only if it is an indicated myomectomy. So even otherwise, if you think that it has to be removed, if it is a big fibroid, a submucous fibroid, such cases we remove it.
So a big meaning, the 2 cases you saw, would you take those out?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
See if it is a...
We would not. I'll give you a follow-up. Say just I'll give you a follow-up when these people deliver.
Yeah.
And then that will be good. So then you can give a feedback. But we wouldn't, just because we don't. But I just, and we don't have problem, you know, we have no postpartum issues with these people. So why do we take it out? I think it'll be great if you can publish your experience. Why did you take it out and which ones you took out, especially those, and how many extra, so do you give extra uterine additional incisions besides the C-section incision? Do you do vertical myometry like the classical C-section type of incisions, or how do you go retrieve these fibroids?
Cesarean section we do as usual, normally a lower segment cesarean section, and that we do is we even suture the cesarean that incision, and then only we go for the myomectomy. If it is a submucous fibroid, definitely we remove the fibroid before suturing it. Otherwise, we do suture the incision, and then we go for the routine myomectomy, as the routine laparotomy myomectomy we do it.
So then you will make incision in the active part of the uterus.
Yeah, in the bulk of the fibroids.
Yeah. So
sometimes
then
maybe anterior or posterior, we don't mind whether the theory people say that don't put a posterior incision on these things, but it's not practical. Wherever you are seeing the fibroid, the maximum, the bulge, we put the incision there.
So how many of your patients then the fibroids recur? Because in up to 20% they'll disappear. And then when people do myomectomies, it's well published that those patients, at least 30%, the fibroids will come back because there are so many of these mutated stem cells floating around in the myometrium. So how many of those on your follow-up have new fibroids? And what do you do with them? Yeah.
The correct, the recurrence rate, I cannot tell you now because some of them are on follow-up. But again, I think that it is not more than the non-pregnant myomectomy. It's the same as the non-pregnant. Yes.
Which is what, 30% recurrence?
Yeah, like that only. We don't find it is small. And another thing is we don't remove the small fibroids, which you don't have to remove in even in other cases. Only if it is indicated cases, we remove it. If it's a big fibroid.
What is your indication?
Yeah, indication means as a non-pregnant state, no? With a big fibroid, say it's about more than 18 week size, or it's a symptomatic fibroid, like there is a excess heavy menstrual blood loss, a submucous fibroid. Such cases we remove it.
Okay.
We have, thank you so much, Ajit sir, for those inputs. We have a few more questions.
Yeah.
If Madam has some 5 more minutes to. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
A question from Dr. Prema from Mangalore. If operating for ovarian endometriosis, you find that there is a fibroid and she has infertility, would myomectomy be indicated? I know that you have also already answered that.
What do you think the answer is?
Yeah.
So not unless you find out that, unless you conclude that the fibroid caused the infertility, there's no reason to remove it, because 60% of your patients will have it. So 60% of the time you'll be like, should I take it out, should I not? And in infertile people, it is, what was it? It's about less than 20% will have it, but only in 1 to 2% it's an issue. So generally speaking, you will not, but you will inform her about it. Even before you do the surgery, you inform her about it. Hey, listen, fibroids are very common. Usually they don't do anything. If I see a fibroid, I'm not going to scar your uterus, because a scarred uterus is a bad uterus. It can harm your future pregnancies. And so I'm not going to touch it. I just want you to know that. And if you're doing an ultrasound before you do that ovarian stuff, show her the pictures. I show my patients these, in fact, the pictures I showed you, I show it to my patients and I'll say, why do you have such a big fibroid? You're scaring me. And then they'll start laughing, you know. But so you, a well-informed patient will appreciate it. If she's not informed, then there can be issues regarding an unhappy, dissatisfied patient. But I wouldn't take it out.
Yeah, thank you so much, madam. Another question from Dr. K. Satyavati from Tanaku. People are throwing in bigger sizes and challenging you to operate. 20 to 20 centimeter subserosal fundal fibroid infertile patient is myomectomy needed.
So for subserosal fibroid, myomectomy is never needed for infertility because it doesn't affect infertility. But if the patient has the bulk, remember the New England Journal of Medicine article that said if the patient has bulk symptoms where it's really pushing on her rectum or wherever, then, and her pregnancy is going to be postponed, sure, you can operate on her.
Dr. Bharti from Bareilly congratulates you on an excellent oration as well as Dr. Udita Mukherjee from Cannanore also appreciates your thing, and she's asking about myomectomies during cesareans. I think we have discussed it at length now over the last 5 to 10 minutes. Dr. Shubhanki Sonkar from Delhi wanted to know about the role of GnRH agonist in managing fibroid. I think you've already answered that. Dr. Indra Bhati from Jodhpur wanted to know about, no, that's about MTP, I feel. We'll leave that question. She appreciates the wonderful talk that you've given. Dr. Archana Mehta from Greater Noida was asking about classical LSCS or intra-cesarean myomectomy in pregnancy with a 10x10 fibroid in anterior lower uterine segment. What is the incision to use, madam? 10x10 centimeter anterior lower uterine segment fibroid for cesarean.
Always, you know, it depends on where your fibroid is. Most of the times you will have a nice lower uterine segment. So go for your lower uterine segment. Once you cut into the active thick muscle part of the uterus, the bleeding can be excessive and there might be multiple other little fibroids on your way and you'll say, oh my God, there's a little one here and a little one there. And then you don't even know when to stop, how much to remove. But in vast majority of the cases, low segment is possible. So it shouldn't, when you're making your low segment incision, if there's a fibroid right in the center, go ahead and take it out, but take it out after the baby is delivered.
Thank you. Dr. Mamta Chahar wants to know about your experience about cervical fibroid. Mamta is from Noida. Cervical fibroid.
Cervical fibroid is very, very uncommon. Of all the fibroids, maybe 1 to 2% will be cervical fibroid. And if it grows, it's going to obstruct labor clearly. So those patients should undergo elective, depending, you know, be sure that it's blocking your, when you do a pelvic examination, you'll find a big sort of cricket ball sitting in their pelvis, and you're like, oh my God, this is huge. There's no way their head is going to come out. In that case, just go ahead and schedule a cesarean section at 39 weeks, not before.
Dr. Padmavati from Vijayawada wants to know, asymptomatic nulliparous patient, intramural fibroid, 8 to 10 centimeters, no cavity distortion. Does she need a myomectomy?
No, that was my first patient, the 23-year-old. Hers was about 5.7 centimeters, but it's not doing anything. We just left her alone. She's pregnant, doing just fine. She doesn't even know she has fibroids. She'll do fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Beena from Abu Dhabi congratulates you on an excellent talk. Dr. Indra Bhatti from Jodhpur says that your session was a real eye-opener. Dr. Asha, congratulations. Dr. Umayal Murugesan from Tambaram has congratulated us, the entire organizers of the conference, for the wonderful academic session. Dr. Varalakshmi from Anantpuram has congratulated you, madam, for an excellent oration. Dr. Aarti Luthra says congratulations for the most lucid presentation of fibroids that she has ever listened to. She's from Dehradun. Dr. Nagaratnama tells it's one of the excellent orations on fibroid uterus I have ever heard. Congratulations to the orator as well as to the organizers. The detailed explanation on molecular biology and pathogenesis is very well appreciated. Dr. Faiz Zaman logged in from Bangalore says thank you for a wonderful presentation. Dr. Shubhanki Sonkar from Delhi wants to know about the use of vasopressin in cesarean myomectomy. I think we have talked that if you want. I mean, Ajit sir with some amount of published literature says that he doesn't use it. So maybe you don't have to. I personally used it without any problem. Dr. Pramila Malik from Gurgaon tells that it will cause unnecessary scars, the LSES myomectomy, agreeing to what Asha madam said, and should be done only if it comes with the incision line or for pedunculated subserous fibroids, where it doesn't deteriorate the prognosis of the patient. Dr. Manchu Patidar from Indore, thanks to you for a wonderful lecture, madam. Bharati Saran from Bareilly wants to know about what to do with submucous myomas in cesarean.
You know, there are 3 levels of submucous myomas, the FIGO classification. So one is completely dangling with a little stalk, that is FIGO 1.
Would you think of removing that if
So,
you encounter that at a cesarean section?
Sorry, so if it is that way dangling, then sure, take the stalk and take it out. But if it is the type that is partly in the uterine cavity, but partly not, and she has been asymptomatic before, nothing going on, leave it alone. And if you really need to take it out, you can, I'll be there in a little bit. You can, so in a C-section, if she has not had any previous issues and it's not dangling, leave it alone. If she starts to have issues, let the uterus shrink. Then you can do a hysteroscopic procedure if she has, excessive bleeding or miscarriages or whatever.
Dr. Rajamma from Kannur wants to congratulate you on that excellent oration. I know we are virtually tying you up at Kannur, isn't it? Not allowing you to go to work, madam.
No, that's okay. I'm in a meeting. I'll be there in half an hour period.
Dr. Amrita from Mysore.
I'm sorry. The residents keep texting me. They want me to round on patients. And I'm like, I'm happy doing this. I'm not happy making rounds. But anyway.
Dr. Amrita is logged in from Mysore. She wants to thank you for that wonderful oration. I think that's it. I think we have answered almost all. So,
if anybody wants my talk, please email me. I'm not always best with my email because I get so many emails that sometimes I forget about it. But it's asharidge@gmail.com. So it's one word, my first name and the first 4 letters of my last name, ASHARIJ@gmail.com. And I will be happy to email it to you. And if I forget to, please remind me, because my memory, I forget often. So please excuse me if I don't do it right away. And also to let you know, I gave Sages like 4 other topics. He declined all, and he liked this fibroid, and that's how I ended up doing the fibroid talk. So I'm glad that, you know, you wanted the fibroid talk. It turns out that it's really super interesting. I think it's a neat little tumor.
Such a privilege that I could take the liberty to pick and choose from what you gave, especially from a person of your stature. I really appreciate that. I mean, the warmth which you have already dealt with me over the years, I think, me taking the liberty was a reflection of that. At Reflections
Totally. I mean, we are all friends, whether you're 25 or 75, it doesn't matter. That's how it should be. That's how it should be. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. What a great job your team is doing. And thanks to everybody that tuned in. This was awesome. You know, I learned from you so much, and I really appreciate that. Next time somebody does a myomectomy, I won't scold them. But I'll still wait for you, your case series with follow-ups. I think that will be very important. And a case control where you have done 20 myomectomies during C-section and 20 where you didn't do it, and then see what the post-operative course was and see how the fibroids did postpartum 6 to 8 weeks. That would be a phenomenal study. It will be taken by New England Journal in a second. So I encourage you to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your experience with me.
Thanks a lot to both the chairpersons, Dr. Ajit as well as Dr. Hariprasad, for your inputs. We move on to the end of today's program. Pretty big number of attendees from all around the world, I would say. Never been so many international attendees for the other webinars that you have done, and that talks a lot about the speakers that we have chosen for today. So that's a real pleasure to have. So we are coming to the end of today's program. First of all, on a personal note, let me thank each one of you who have logged in. And for the official vote of thanks, let me hand it over to Dr. Simi Kurian, who is the Secretary of Cannanore O&G Society. Over to you, Simi. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. So today in this evening, now we are moving towards the end of our annual conference, Reflections 2020. So it's my privilege to say a vote of thanks on this wonderful occasion. So first of all, on behalf of FOGS, let me express my sincere gratitude and thanks to Dr. Shantakumari, the President-elect FOGSI 2021. In spite of her busy schedule, Madam accepted our invitation to deliver the inaugural address. Thank you, Madam, even though she has logged out. And we were also lucky to have the 2 eminent personalities to deliver today's keynote address, Dr. Jaideep Tang, the Secretary General of FOGSI, and Dr. Narendra Malhotra, the past FOGSI President. And both of them had given a clear insight on both the topic, regarding abortion in India, the medical legal aspects, and regarding the prevention of preterm labor. Thank you, Dr. Jaideep and Dr. Narendra Malhotra. And today we had our second Cannanore O&G Society oration. We are extremely thankful to Dr. Asha for her wonderful oration. And in spite of the present tough time, busy work schedule, and different time zones in India and United States, Madam was only happy to deliver this oration. Thank you so much, Madam, on behalf of Cannanore O&G Society.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me also thank the chairpersons for the session, Dr. Ajit, Dr. Jose, Dr. Hariprasad, Dr. Gobinathan, Dr. Sujitra, and Dr. Mini for chairing these sessions. Our special thanks to the office bearers of ICOG for giving all the support for our annual conference. Thank you all the participants who have joined us, not only from different parts of the country, but all over the world in a big number, in spite of the various webinars going simultaneously. Thank you all the participants. Thank you, Mr. Saurabh and Mr. Dinesh, for giving us all the support for arranging this webinar. And my sincere thanks to Dr. Shaijas, the President of Cannanore O&G Society, for all his efforts in arranging this annual conference, the part 1 and part 2 Reflections 2020. Thank you all. Thank you once again for making our annual conference Reflections 2020 a grand success. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Simi, for those words. And I forgot to welcome and thank Dr. Sangeeta also, very integral part of our team in organizing any event, be it academic or a non-academic one. So thank you, Sangeeta, for logging in, who's our treasurer of the Cannanore O&G Society. So thank you all the speakers. Thanks to Simi. Thanks to all the chairpersons, Dr. Sujitra, Dr. Mini Balakrishnan, Dr. Ajit, Dr. Gopinathan, Dr. Hariprasad, and Dr. Jose. Thank you for everybody who have logged in from different parts of the world. It makes us feel very special. I hope we have been able to take almost all your questions. And if there is anything left, please let us know. Our contact details are already there. So please let us know. We will only be happy to forward it to the concerned speaker and get the answers for you. So hoping for more webinars will continue with the best of speakers from the country, as well as probably whenever there's an opportunity, an international speaker to chip in. So hopefully we can continue this process of spreading good information. Thank you all for logging in. Thank you to our members who have logged in, and especially I've all learned this new way of learning. Everybody is commenting, asking questions through the chat box. It's wonderful that COVID has forced us to learn new things, to do things in the new ways, and hopefully things will continue in the future too, even after COVID leaves us. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care. Stay safe wherever you are, in whichever part of the world you are in.